Just over a week away from the start of the NFL draft, more pre-draft visits for the Bills. The latest name added to that list, Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. Howard Simon and Joe Marino have more on Amos up at our website, WGR550.com. And speaking of the draft, join Schopp and the Bulldog for the annual pre-draft special tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., streaming live on YouTube. Get the latest on who is being mocked where, hear from the insiders, and guest appearances from Jeremy White, Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, and Sal Capaccio. Presented by your Upstate Honda dealers for great deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport. Visit your Upstate Honda dealer today. 6 games in the NHL tonight, just one, though, with playoff implications. Montreal hosts Carolina at 7. The Canadiens can clinch the playoffs with a win or a loss in overtime/shootout. If they don't get that 1 point, Columbus can take that spot tomorrow with a win in regulation versus the Islanders. No Bisons tonight as the game with Syracuse was postponed due to weather. It's going to be made up on Friday in Syracuse as a doubleheader. Blue Jays are up 2-0 in the 6th against Atlanta. The Mets trail the Twins 3-0 in the 6th. And at 7, the Yankees will host the Royals. And we have night number 2 of the NBA play-in games, Heat versus Bulls at 7:30. Then at 10, it's the Mavericks taking on the Kings. Losers are eliminated while the winners will play on Friday for a chance to become their conference's 8th seed. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Uh-oh. Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody?
Monday, Tuesday, hump day is halfway. It's Mike Schopp.
Mike. What day is it, Mike?
And the Bulldog.
Hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Guess what today is?
It's hump day.
Woo-hoo!
On WGR
Hump day!
Sports Radio 550. Gonna be there in an hour.
The show is starting, so we either break off this long conversation we've been having about Warren Moon, or we just continue it.
Well, I mean, really, what more is there to be said?
Well, that's
although I guess
I
guess we could say it on the air.
Nobody else knows anything.
No, right.
About what's been said.
We could leave it as a mystery. It's not really that mysterious.
I feel like Warren Moon was probably really underrated. Wasn't there always kind of a, I don't know, like they didn't win in the playoffs.
Gadget offense, run and shoot, right? Blowing a. How big was the lead?
35 to 3.
Right, 35. Thank you for refreshing my memory.
How about that interference call that wasn't made in overtime?
So
somewhere Warren Moon is still rolling his eyes about that.
I gotta admit, I said something. You brought it up. I don't remember exactly the context in which. I mean, obviously we're talking about football, and I think I was trying to make a point about how much more prolific passing, just quarterbacks are. Like the best quarterbacks are. So much better. And there's truth in that, in accuracy, lack of interceptions, that kind of thing has really changed from the 80s and 90s into here, the 2010s and 2020s. But I said something about how, was Kelly's best year 91? Was that his MVP year? That was the year I had in my head when I was thinking about it anyway.
Thurman won the MVP.
Okay.
Kelly was second.
Kelly's best year, right? Like he didn't even he probably threw for 3,000 yards or something. I said kind of flippantly. And now the best guys are throwing for 5,000 yards. And you went looking at Kelly's numbers, and turns out he was closer to 4,000 yards in 91. And that's where Warren Moon came off the top rope. In 1991, this blew my mind because I wouldn't have guessed anyone in 1991 was over 4,000 yards passing. Mm-hmm. Warren Moon was 4,690. In 1991. I mean, that's just a monster season. That's a monster season now, let alone in 1991. And thus the conversation about the great Warren Moon.
So that ranks 50th all time. 4,690. 50th all time. The only ones older, previous to that, ahead of Moon would be Fouts in 80, Marino in 86, Fouts in 81, Marino in 84. Marino threw for 5,000 yards in 84, which would have been the record until Breeze and Brady. So, yeah. At age 22, by the way.
Marino.
It's enough about him, though.
Yeah.
It's enough about him.
And his isotoner gloves.
Well, what was the point? What was the point? Like, it was as it's been like kind of off and on here for weeks, if not years at this point, trying to figure out the Bills on offense, how do they want to be different, if at all? And I think Amari Cooper is interesting for this last year because like a lot of these kind of things, you really could look at that a couple of different ways. So you'll often bring up that they traded for Cooper as a reason to think they're not like necessarily all set about their passing offense, or weren't. If not, that's still the case.
Yeah, otherwise, why do it? I mean, you're giving up a decent asset. I mean, it's not your best asset, but still, it'd be nice to have that third-round pick in your pocket if you didn't think you needed Amari Cooper.
I think, though, you could also say you would always want to do that. Like, you have a chance to win, and even if you have just injuries, like you're getting somebody who was really good. I mean, the year before, if not at times early last year, you didn't really know with Cleveland, maybe because of how bad Watson was. But you're getting somebody that, at least recently, was really productive.
I was expecting him to do maybe about double what he did here.
Oh, I wanted to think at least that, yes. What was it? 20 catches and then a couple in the playoffs?
Yeah.
But you could also look at Cooper like you look at Von Miller. It was a very different investment, different level of investment. But what was Von Miller? You know, he's never good. Even when they got him, when he was younger, he was not going to be like down in, down out game wrecker. He was not going to be Myles Garrett. He was not going to be somebody that was always on the field like Bruce or somebody in his prime, and you would have to like, uh-oh. No, he was more situational.
Right.
And what you wanted from Von Miller was, and you were on your way to getting it. That's how it goes, though. He got hurt. That play when you needed it. Like, they won a game in Kansas City, and Von Miller was pivotal to that.
Made 3 integral plays to the win in the fourth quarter. Not all sacks, but pressures that led to incompletions. He impacted. He was the closer. Like, they talked about, whether they said that or that tag got thrown on him as soon as the Bills signed him. Like, that was the idea. He's going to help us close games out. And yeah, they were on their way. He was on his way to doing that for them.
So you could look at Cooper like that. That, you know, maybe the Bills felt, he's not prime Amari Cooper anymore. He's past his prime, but he can help us, and it's a draft pick next year. We have an extra one of those anyway with the Diggs trade, so why not? I think maybe that is what I would say. That, you know, why not? He can help us, and we're trying to win right now, so let's go get Amari Cooper. But did it ever, I'm not sure this is about him or them, but did it ever really change how they played? They didn't need to push the ball down the field more often than they did. Even in the playoffs, really. Like, they just never really needed to do it. That's, like, fundamentally the conversation trying to predict this draft. Like, do they think they're good, or do they think they need Luther Burden? Right? Of course, I'm going to get to that name. But I feel like, you know, you could have looked at Cooper as, just give me a couple of plays in the playoffs like Von Miller was.
How much, I mean, I don't even know what this is to say, but it's in my head. It's popped in there for a third time now. I repressed it the first 2 times. The third down play in the playoffs on the Bills, you know, the drive that mattered, right? The drive that cost them their opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. Like, if he gets away, like somebody get just like his foot or something, like if that guy misses him or he makes that guy miss, that could be a big gain. And that is Von Miller. That is, here it is, the game is on the line, and we got this guy, and we're doing this, and that's not a way. I don't recall him catching a lot of passes like that one in the season. prior to that. But here it is. And if he gets around that edge, I don't know if he's scoring, but he's gaining a lot of yards, and that's the play. Like, there it is. Thank God we went and got Amari Cooper. Like, that trade is being lauded if that play works better than it did, and instead it didn't. He lost his footing a little bit. The guy caught his foot, and he went down, and they had, 3rd and 7 or whatever they had, or 4th. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Von Miller if he gets blocked, he gets picked up by Samaje Perine instead of, like, getting to the quarterback, right? Just, it didn't happen. And I don't know. I still think, end of the day, the Bills probably really like their offense. Anybody want to challenge that? Like, do you agree with that? I think they probably shouldn't they? Would somebody who doesn't care about the Bills say different? Shouldn't they really like their offense? You'd get to Cook. You'd get to everybody eats. That didn't go badly. I almost said it went great.
I don't know. That's interesting. I think. Like, we know they set a franchise record for points, and we know they were second in the league in scoring. And, like, any fan that isn't a Bills fan, any football fan, could find that information. But they're probably not sitting around over lunch, if they're talking with their friends about it, with that stuff stored away like we have it. And if a thing that you would do to determine what you think of the Bills' offense would be to go look at their players, go look at their depth chart, I don't know, man. Like, I could see me making the same mistake I made about passing yards in 1991 about a team like the Bills. I might forget here. Now it's April. The season ended in January, for them anyways. And we're just talking. We're just a bunch of dudes talking about football. And the Bills, man, that offense was really good. And I'm going to go look at, and I'm going to go, okay, I mean, the running back scored a bunch of touchdowns. Mac Hollins, I'm sorry. Like, who are their guys?
Well,
like who, how did they do so well? Because there's not a lot here.
I know, but when that happens to me, who I question is myself.
Right.
Like some of those Brady Patriots teams, didn't we do that? Like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
Well, how can you explain this? Super Bowl winner. I mean, okay, maybe he's really good, but who are these other guys? And isn't it beatable? And then 2 decades went by.
Right.
So
with pretty much a rotating cast of people in those roles of the who are these guys.
I mean, anybody can say who was Mac Hollins, but the Bills had a purpose for him. Like they had a reason for signing him. He played a role. He helped them. Like, it wasn't to them probably an accident. Maybe to us it would be like more of a fluke, but to them it probably was not an accident. And Shakir is not an accident, right? And what you ever got from Coleman and Kincaid and Samuel were sort of like this and that, and Cooper. And so you and I go, or anybody sort of on the so-called receiver train can be like, yeah, I don't really like any of these players. And I don't even know if Cook is here. Like, just, but you can get to probably if you want. I'm not there. But it does look, like you're saying, it does to me look like a team that could use a new talent. Mm-hmm. And it's draft time. Like, this is when you do that. I did see a mock draft today from Evan Silva, who was on our show last Monday, putting the Bills on Luther Burden. And Jeremy tweeted that he saw another one where somebody had the Bills on. I think there's maybe some copycat in this, but he saw another one where they put the Bills on Luther Burden. And this is the closest I think we've been to maybe they would actually do that. Like, there's been no receiver. Chris Trapaso today. There's different. We've had many conversations with him. We've had conversations with other guys. Who's been putting the Bills on receiver at 30? And who is it? Like, here and there.
It's probably happened a couple times, but it's not. Yeah, it is not a regular occurrence at all. It stands out when it happens.
Yes, it's always defensive tackle or corner. Or edge, even. Edge is third.
I agree.
And then receiver is here and there. What I think is exciting about seeing this from Evan is, and this is no disrespect to Chris or the other guys, the many guys who are really heady and do this all the time. Chris Trapaso does a mock draft every week. Todd McShay's yesterday was his third. PFF's, Warren Sharp's, they're like 4.0. Like, this is what happens. Mm-hmm. This is Evan's first. And I know him. And what he is trying to do, and this isn't, again, to say that other guys are not trying to do this, he's trying to be right. It's next week. And this is his first mock draft, and he's trying to be right. He's going to bet these. That's what Evan does, is he's going to bet these. And for him to put, I think that's what is the kind of, with Evan or Chris Trapaso or anybody right now, I don't know, what would Chris say? But like, he's probably always trying to be right, but you're also sort of moving with different speculation, and there's news along the way, and things, need updating. I think right now, Brugler, all those guys are at the point, Schefter, where they're trying to like sort of put it down now, okay? We're talking to teams. Teams are closer to knowing what they really want, so here. And I think that's what, to me, because I'm biased, I want the Bills to do this for fun. And, maybe it's a good pick. Maybe it's a terrible idea. People will tell you that. Receiver. But I think now we're close.
Yeah.
And I know he's not just trying to wow you. He's trying to be right. So I don't know who he knows or what he's going by, if anything, other than common sense or logic. But Burden, I think, is probably available. And he presents, other than Travis Hunter, I believe, the greatest ceiling of all the receivers in this thing. I think he gives you the most upside of anybody. And I think he's there at 30. Would the Bills do it? We don't know. We'll find out.
It's interesting. A couple things here. I mean, we'll talk to Chris. Not that I want to get all into this again, but last week you weren't here for Chris's visit, and we spent, I hope it wasn't like an self-indulgent amount of time talking about process, like his process. And I mentioned how I do what I do. Like, I don't consume a ton of this kind of content because I want to, if I stumble into a take, I want it to be honest, even if it's the same thing that somebody said in Boston or Pittsburgh or wherever. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't want to be, corrupted is too strong, but like, I don't know. I don't want to, and if I do like something and I want to use it, I like to try to credit wherever that comes from, and I think you're the same way. So, like, I don't want to muddy my waters, so to speak. And Chris is very like-minded. Like, he doesn't want to study what everyone else does because he's trying to do what he's doing, and believe in his process and do that. And the other piece of that is that he did today, his mock draft today was what I would do.
Yeah.
If I were, every one of these teams. And did you see where Burden went in that exercise?
Way earlier.
12th, maybe. Like in the top 15 of the first round. It was just like, so funny that we're having this conversation and his name came up, and of course we'll talk to him. So I think he thinks very highly of that player. But again, that doesn't mean he believes he's going to go that high. This is what he would do if he were in charge. Guys that he likes fits for each team. And that's how you end up.
He put him at 6.
That high? Okay, wow.
He put him at 6. He's a very Raiders player. Luther Burden, the third. Yeah. Well, the question ultimately always is it realistic? Well, I mean, there's one question. Another one, like, would you do it? But is it realistic? And that's been my hang-up with receiver this year is everything. You already know. They've just done this twice. And would they like their offense? I bet they do. Mac Hollins is gone. Do you think they think that's a game changer? Maybe not. Maybe Palmer for them is the same or even better. And more, all the reasons you talk yourself into progress. More from Coleman, more maturity, more from Kincaid, stronger. You always want to do that. You want to be realistic too, but there's a sort of a slant in that direction. And
I bet they view Palmer as Hollins plus. And he better be because, they're paying him 3 or 4 times what they were paying Mac Hollins last year. And they're paying him even more than Mac Hollins got this year to go to New England. So, but I think that like on the field that much, dirty work down the field, all that sort of stuff, I think that maybe is part of it. The other part of it is, he should be a more productive receiver. And I'll say it again, he better be. Because they're not paying him through the roof or anything, but they're paying him more than they're paying Curtis Samuel. They're paying him way more than they paid Mac Hollins. So if I get Mac Hollins out of Josh Palmer, that's not going to be a W, I don't think, for them.
Well, Hollins is the blocker, too. Like, he's on the field and not so much in the stats. He did lead them with 5 touchdown catches, but he caught 31 passes. I think Palmer's probably 40. I don't think he's much more than that. It's what he's been in his career every year but one. And, again, like, how do they want to do it? Would they not think last year went well? Spreading the ball around to all these different guys, Cook in his role. I want to still be assuming that Cook is on the field. Would they really be a team that wants to philosophically change how they play? The Bills?
Ooh, I definitely don't think they want to philosophically change how they play. But this is where, again, I mention that they did, however it turned out, they did go get a guy. So, and they have not really, I think Palmer, best case scenario is somewhere between Hollins and maybe what you thought Cooper could be. I don't think he's ever been and is not about to become a guy that is capable of being a number one guy. But he better be more than Hollins to me. But they still haven't. They need that guy still. They have not replaced that guy. Unless they have what I would consider to be unrealistic expectations of Palmer and are, expecting bigger jumps from other guys like Coleman and or Kincaid. And it's okay to expect them to be better than they were last year, but you got to have, I think, some sort of fallback because they did pivot 6 weeks into the season and make a move for a guy. And I don't know, I'd rather not end up there again in October. I mean, it's fine to go, we're always going to be, while the Bills are in this contending window, we're always going to be, looking at, who might be available at the trade deadline? Is that a fit? Can they afford him? What's the price? Yada, yada, because, go get another guy. And you'd always talk yourself into that. But they actually did it last year, and that hole still has not been, to me, adequately addressed. And that is the reason why I don't want to just shout down any idea about Luther Burden or anybody else at 30 or 52, 56 or 62. Because I think that hole, that vacancy, hole's maybe a little strong, but that vacancy is still there.
I would just add to that by saying maybe, again, that from every thing I read and listen to, I'm consuming as much draft stuff as is possible, I think. I don't know how much more I could read or listen to, but Burden's negatives are intangible. Like his negatives are work ethic, that kind of thing, like off the field. On the field, he's like a stud. And there was like sort of a tapering off of production on a kind of lousy offense. So maybe it's fair to make an excuse for him there. But I think in terms of the draft, he's like the only guy for me for this. Like he's at 30. He's the only one. I mean, Ibuka is kind of interesting. Golden is gone, and I don't think I'd want him anyway. But it would look like great value. Right. McMillan is the same thing. McMillan is gone, but would also look like great value. At 30, I'm not looking to trade up. I think Burden is probably on the board. And otherwise, I have to say it. I mean, I say this to everybody else. You never know who's going to actually be good. But when guys are ranking him as like wide receiver 2 and 3, kind of at every turn, and nobody's almost ever putting him there in terms of like where he goes, then I think I might have an opportunity if I can handle the other stuff. And I want to think that the Bills can. But then there are all the questions like, what does it do for Coleman? And I think the question about all that is, like, do you have to care about that? Because it will look like, we talked about this yesterday at the beginning, it will look like bad planning if you go right back to receiver again, right? On a team that did set a franchise record in points. That's why it's always seemed unlikely. Or one reason.
I understand that. I guess I feel like you can push back on that. They have an MVP as their quarterback. Wanting to get him more stuff to make the passing offense better, make his job, his life even easier, make him even more productive. That argument can be made. So, yeah, I wonder, like, if the Chiefs drafted Burden at where were they drafting? 31. Like, if the Bills don't like this idea, or they feel like they like Kenny Grant more, or some corner or something, and they got to do it, and Burden's on the board, and the Chiefs just drafted Xavier Worthy last year in the first round, and he looks somewhat promising, more promising right now than Coleman looks, and they did it anyway, would I be, oh, what are you doing? Maybe Chiefs fans might, but me over here in Buffalo would be like, oh man, they got another guy for Patrick Mahomes. So I think maybe fans outside of Buffalo could get there, could understand, like, I get it. You keep giving Allen premium talent, and you're gonna get there someday.
Yeah, I mean, it's really always a good question about whether or not that's better, because it's clear that they have holes, quote, holes on defense. But what actually gives me a better chance of winning? 803-0550 for your calls. The aforementioned Chris Trapaso joins us at 4 today. We'll look to hear from you next. Draft in 8 days. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
like a top 10 player in this draft. Obviously, he fell off, and even in addition to falling off, some of the sort of biggest concerns people have are on-field attitude. Like, did he kind of give up, right? Did he check out of these games mentally? Did he kind of bail on things when it got tough? And is that a concern for teams, going forward? Because as a dynamic playmaker, Luther Burden has abilities that not many receivers in this draft have.
How does that sound? Sam Monson, does that sound like a guy you want or a guy you avoid?
There's a little George Pickensy sound in there to me, right? Like, just this isn't going well. I don't feel like blocking on this play. It's just like, I'm just gonna, the ball snapped. I'm just gonna stand here. Like, I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched the tape, so I don't know. But that description sounds a little. I think Pickens has been guilty of some of that at the NFL level so far, and like that's a guy I wouldn't touch. Pickens. I just think it's been too evident at the NFL level that that's kind of his attitude. I don't know. Like, this kid could have been just. To some extent, I might understand it. Like, I was thought of as one of the best receivers in the country off of last year. We got a new quarterback at this offense. I'm being thrown all these balls at the line of scrimmage, and I'm just I'm exposing myself to contact I don't need to be exposing myself to, and the payday's coming, and I want to be in shape to greet the train when it comes. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you would have to assume or expect the same sort of, if there was this sort of disconnect there, that you would have that problem with him once he gets to the NFL. Because I respect any kid who's staring at the opportunity a guy like him was, and the year starts and it's going a certain way, and you're just going to feel like, this could be bad for me. And ultimately, sure, team game, rah-rah and all that, but the guy's got to make. He's got to make it to April. He's got to make it to April with his knees and his shoulders and his Achilles tendons and everything intact, and his head, all of it. And so, I don't know. Doing that in college at a program that was going nowhere is a very different thing than doing it for the Pittsburgh Steelers in the NFL. I would say, like Pickens has. So, I'd want to make sure. I mean, I'd want to certainly sit with him and get some sense of it. So
still can't know.
Right.
Yeah, you have to decide. And it's another reason for me to think that the Bills, coming off of Coleman, just wouldn't risk it. Like, we've got a good offense. We need a starting corner. We want starting interior defensive line. Brandon Beane is at a point now, if it comes to this, where he's, in question. Some of these picks recently with Elam, of course, famously. I think they play it safer. But safer for me is sort of like a problem. I want the upside. I admit, I always do. 803-0550. I wasn't here Wednesday through Friday last week. Any new Cook takes? There's no news on that, right? Nothing's new on that.
No, I don't think it really. I don't think I ever felt the need to really get into it at all last week. It just sort of was there, Are you any closer,
or do you think they're any closer to a move? Just I kind of think not. I want to at least not assume so, because of what Bean said last, which is we're on to the draft now, and if they were on to the draft, then they're on to the draft. Like, that wouldn't these day-to-day, days going by where they're not acting on Cook doesn't, if they're even not, like, who knows what's maybe happening, but I don't think it would have to mean anything.
I don't sense they're any closer to anything, but I do feel, I believe that they would be inclined to keep their options completely open there. I think it's part of the reason why you don't just extend the player and satisfy him and give him what he wants. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to do that, but one that's maybe not as important as, well, not paying a running back $15 million a year who's only on the field less than 50% of the time for me, is to keep my options open. If there is a team out there, I don't know, maybe there's some team that really loves the North Carolina guy or one of the Ohio State guys, and the draft falls a certain way. Does that say like those teams shouldn't be able to pivot to any one of 6 other running backs later in the draft? But they might feel like there's a line. These guys, and then the rest of these guys are, yeah, sure, they're functional, they're fine, but we want better than that. And they like Cook and want to give you, I don't know, a third? I would want to have that option if I were Brandon Beane and the Bills, because I think you should be, and I think they are. They've had running backs in here to visit. They're doing their work. I think they should be ready if someone hits them with an offer that just makes too much sense, where they can reset the entire thing and even do great if the guy hits. I mean, you're talking about drafting a replacement, maybe even with the pick you get in return for Cook, and then you're at $1 million a year for the next 4 years or 3 years, right? Cook's salary was around $1 million for 3 years, and now this year it bumps up to 5. Mm-hmm. So I'm doing great if that happens, if I can trust that the production is going to be reasonably replaced. And I've alleviated whatever headache could have been coming. I'm alleviating any concern about the player feeling slighted, and even the guys on the team feeling like, they should have taken care of Cook. I mean, if Cook's not here, out of sight, out of mind, who's the new guy? Is he any good? Oh, look, he's good. Great, fine. We're all fine here. I think whatever distraction there is goes away, and then it just becomes all about how good is the new guy. And if he's decent, then it's a non-story, I think.
No, he has to be, though.
Yes, that's right. And there's not you should not have certainty that he will be. You can like a guy, fine, but who knows?
What you should feel very confident about, though, is that your running game isn't dependent on your running back. It's dependent on the rest of it. It's dependent on your run blocking, your scheme, your players. Like the running back is the beneficiary.
Even your quarterback. I mean, Allen, not just passing. Allen as a weapon helps their running back, helps the running backs. So they're set up to have, a different guy in there have success, I think.
Remember the one game Cook missed last year?
Yeah, the Jet game in New York.
At the Jets. The Bills won without him somehow. And you know what Davis went for?
I know he had the big he had the big catch downfield. So I know that that's the play that stands out in that game to me from him. But I don't know his rushing stat line off the top of my head.
Yards from scrimmage, 152.
Okay. Yeah, like maybe 60 of it was that reception.
42.
42? Okay.
Maybe.
All right.
Count it, though. Cook had plenty of that.
Sure, that's right.
152 from Davis, the one game Cook missed at the Jets. Not the easiest. 803-0550. You're right. I was.
Yep, good.
You're right. I was on Tankathon today.
Oh, Jesus.
You were right. You out there were correct. I dabbled on first run Sabres. 2 things on Tankathon with 1 game left in the Sabres season. First, so big one tomorrow. If they lose in regulation, they move up 1 spot in the percentages from 6.5% to 7.5%. You'd want that. So there's one thing. The other thing is, so when you call up, it's tankathon.com, and they have it for every sport. When you call up, at least now, maybe it changes depending on the season. When you call up Tankathon, when you call up the site, type it in, you get the NBA first. The page that comes up is the NBA. And we're into the play-in rounds now. The regular season is over. NHL season will be over tomorrow. So, NFL, it's unusual this year. No team has traded its number 1 pick. Every team still has its original number 1 pick, all 32. NBA, the teams that are in the playoffs, how many? It's a 30-team league, so it's 16 in the playoffs. I don't know what to do with the play-in teams, but there's a line here on Tankathon.com. I got 16 teams under the line. Mm-hmm. How many have their first-round pick?
Oh, my gosh. Well, I'm going to guess that like a half a dozen or so of them traded away their 2025 first-round pick in 1985.
Right, years ago, right.
So I'm going to say 10.
3.
Okay.
3 teams in the NBA playoffs have their first-round pick for this year, June, right?
Mm-hmm.
NFL, nobody moves. Hockey, a few don't also. I mean, hockey's the better comparison, but yeah, a lot of teams in the playoffs have also traded their number one. Not to the Sabres, unfortunately. None of them has done that. Like Nashville has 3 1s. Philadelphia has 3 1s. Calgary has 2, but not their own. So there's been a lot of that. But football, not one move has been made. Will it happen? We get into Thursday. I wonder if in this draft, teams are really going to want to move up. They probably will. They always do. It kind of always happens.
Yeah.
But
even with what looks like a long plateau, teams are going to have preferences that don't line up with whatever we think the consensus is. So, that happens. But, yeah, I think if we were going to get any sort of dramatic stuff up top, that something would have already happened. You know, I mean, I know, teams can do this sort of thing right up until the minute the draft, is going right until they're on the clock. But there just has not been any real talk about it. And I think that's because the perception is, as much as it's been maybe in certain circles, it's been attempted to talk it into existence that all these quarterbacks are hot commodities. But I think much more likely is the scenario you've been talking about for weeks, if not months, where one of Cleveland, the Giants, any of the teams that need a quarterback that aren't going to get Cam Ward, maybe will be inclined, and maybe the race will be between those teams to sort of gauge like who's flinching first, right? Is Cleveland going to start calling teams that are in the 20s? Because they want to get their hands on Shedeur Sanders at some degree of a discounted rate as opposed to doing it in the top couple picks. Same for the Giants. Could they, wait and the Thursday's going by and it gets into its pick 25? Like, okay. And I think I mentioned this already one day this week. You would already, those teams would have already had conversations with those teams in that region of the draft. And, maybe there's something that they feel entirely confident about. But I think it's likely the only first round trades are those. The Bills could move from 30 to 28 because there's a tackle they love and they're worried that somebody ahead of them is going to scoop them up, so they move.
Oh, they're absolutely going to do that.
So that, and then, little moves, right? The Giants from whatever pick they have in round 2, it's high, back into the first round. That's not costly. That's not next year's one or any of that kind of stuff. I think those sorts of first round trades I would still, expect might be a little strong, but I think the likelihood of that is pretty decent. And anything else, I just don't really expect it.
Yeah, you wait until you're on the clock there for that trade. You don't do it now because then somebody else comes in over the top of you, right? I didn't like your face when I mentioned the Flyers and the odds.
Oh no!
You were very angry about that.
Purposefully tried to look like I wanted to hit you, and then I stared at the camera for a while because I'm just trying to play it up. We've got a TV show now, so I'm the tank. Somebody called me last week one day, and I don't even remember how it came up, but I was like, are you worried about them winning these games? Something like that. I was like, I've not thought about it one time. I couldn't possibly even begin to consider caring. I do not care.
I know. It hasn't really crossed my mind at all this year either. Especially now there's one left, and the team they're right ahead of is the opponent. They canceled practice today. They must not think it's too serious, this win tomorrow. I thought about that for a few minutes, canceling practice.
Lindy is still on $8.99, by the way. He's been bristling about, you last week, he bristled on Tuesday. It came up again on Thursday, and he just doesn't want to talk about it, and they haven't won since.
That's the thing. We've been talking for a long time about, the Sabres are playing better end of the season. Go figure. It wasn't the end of the season yet.
No, right.
Now it's the end of the season. They could go in on a 5-game losing streak.
Right.
Thanks a lot. We're not getting to 80.
No.
803-0550, Chris Trapaso at 4, Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR. So Chris Trapaso coming up at 4 o'clock. We'll talk to him again next week and once more after the draft. Speaking of drafts, which we were, I entered a very fun thing called a dispersal draft last night.
Okay, now what happens next?
Jumped on a stream with my friend JD up in Toronto, a fantasy draft. He invited me sort of last minute, and I jumped on with him, and we drafted a team in a tournament. And at the end of it, he mentioned this other league he's in. They're looking for somebody. I'm like, I'll do it.
Sure.
I'm in a league with him. I like him. I'll play with him. So this league had 5 people dump. Not a great sign. I mean, I have to admit.
Well, the tariffs.
Tariffs, yes. Is that why there weren't more people at the game last night?
I think absolutely.
I couldn't sell tickets to that game.
I did not think about it ahead of time. I just assumed status quo, but I think almost definitely that was Canadians who don't want to support it and come across the border.
Yeah, well, it's their right.
Yep.
Whatever reason here in this one, 5 openings, and they took all the abandoned teams and put all the players from those teams in a dispersal draft.
Okay.
Those are fun.
Sure.
I'd like to see more of these in sports somehow.
Teams fold and then have their players dispersed throughout the league?
There's got to be a handful of teams in every league where we could get rid of them, like the Pirates. The Sabres, maybe. To be honest.
It hits a little close to home right now. The first thought I had was, you're folding teams? How about the one that's, can't sell out a Toronto game?
I don't want to, or come close. I don't want to fold them. I just want to, mix it up a little bit. So the Pirates are a better example because no team hates their fans more than the Pirates. Like, you've got real talent, a couple of guys. The Sabres have that too. There are similarities.
There is. We don't have time now. Have you caught wind at all the story about the bricks?
Yeah.
Holy cow!
I know.
It's
amazing.
4:45. At some point, because I had been I saw it last week and I just never got to it. It is amazing.
Yeah, the people bought commemorative bricks outside that ballpark, and the Pirates just dug them up. They just dug them up
and sent them out to be. We're gonna do it right now, and to be recycled. And they said they had no contact information for the people who bought the bricks. What? What are you doing over there?
It's so bad.
They had already replaced them 1 or 2 times prior to this. They finally decided, let's just get rid of it altogether, and they're going to, I guess, build a different display that people won't be, it'll be more weatherproof, people won't be walking on it, whatever.
Oh, sure.
But no one had any idea, so fans started going to the ballpark for, the first series of the season, and the bricks are gone. And Grandpa's name here, no, it's not that. Where is it? Oh, it's being ground up into future bricks for other projects. Like, what?
Yeah.
You give those bricks to the people who bought them. What are you doing?
I, for one, am excited to spend $800 on a new one and then have it taken a sledgehammer to in 8 years.
We have no contact information for the people who bought the bricks. What are you doing?
Then you don't. I mean, you go public. You do 100 other things before you just.
Why would you not have kept that information? That blew my mind. That story blew my mind.
Well, there should be a dispersal draft.
All right. We didn't need 4:45.
The Mets should get Paul Skeens or something. I don't know. I don't really want that either. Chris Trapaso next. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Call or text
Away from the start of the NFL draft and more pre-draft visit reports for the Bills. Continue to come in. The latest name added to that list, Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. Howard Simon and Joe Marino do have more on Amos up at our website, WGR550.com. And speaking of the draft, join Schopp and the Bulldog for the annual pre-draft special tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., streaming live on YouTube. Get the latest on who is being mocked where, hear from the insiders and guest appearances from Jeremy White, Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, and Sal Capaccio. It's presented by Upstate Honda Dealers for great deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport. Visit your Upstate Honda dealer today. 6 games in the NHL tonight, just one, though, with playoff implications. Montreal hosting Carolina at 7. The Canadiens can clinch the playoffs with a loss in overtime or a shootout or a win. If they don't get that 1 point, Columbus can clinch tomorrow with a win in regulation versus the Islanders. No Bisons tonight as their game in Syracuse was postponed due to weather. It's going to be made up on Friday in Syracuse as part of a doubleheader. Blue Jays, they took down the Braves 3-1. The Mets are tied with the Twins 3-3 as that game heads into extra innings. Then at 7, the Yankees will host the Royals. And we do have night 2 of the NBA play-in games with Heat versus Bulls at 7:30. Then at 10, it's Mavericks versus the Kings. Losers are eliminated while the winners, they'll play again on Friday for a chance to become their conference's 8th seed. It's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
We're up there, and here are the people on the panel, so I'm taking pot shots at Brian Brown. Because, that's what he came to Buffalo for.
It's Mike Schopp.
You literally told E.J. Manuel to his face that he sucked.
And the Bulldog.
I was proud of you, because I
feel like that's what you're there for.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
I know. I couldn't, though. No, I couldn't.
I'm better than you.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
An interesting twist on a mock draft today from our guest, Chris Trapaso, joining us now on the West Her Hotline. Hi, Chris.
Hey, guys. How's it going?
All right. So this is what I would do if I ran every team.
Yes.
And that's a really fun idea. A lot of these picks, like where the Bills go and sort of along the way, do come out pretty close to or exactly the same sometimes to what another mock draft attempting to predict the draft would look like. But, Jack Besh at 10. This is exciting. Maybe, would you say this? Maybe wide receiver is the position where you might have the most different opinions than you think the consensus.
Yeah, that's a good call, and I would agree with that. I think I'm not quite as high on Matthew Golden. I like Luther Burden ahead of Pat McMillan. I like Jack Besh. I love Elijah Badger. That's film-based. That's analytics-based. And, yeah, I think Jack Besh is someone that should be considered a first-round caliber prospect in this class. I think the only concern that most people have with him is, he's not crazy fast. But it's really been long time now that we understand that running 4.2 or 4.3 is not at the top of the priority list when it comes to being a quality wide receiver in the NFL. And that Jack Besh has everything else that teams want at that outside and then can play inside wide receiver spot in today's NFL.
How realistic is it that he becomes a first-round pick at all, in your objective opinion, recognizing that you did this today and like this player enough to have him go as high as Mike indicated?
Pretty unlikely. I think early second wouldn't shock me because it feels like as the pre-draft process has rolled along that there are more people that understand that he is a pretty rock-solid prospect. And for a lot of the teams picking in the early portions of the second round, they could certainly use a wide receiver. I mean, with the Browns, Giants, Titans all right there, they could use it. The Jaguars, obviously, at 37, the Raiders, the Patriots. So the first 7 or 8 picks, they could all, I'm not saying that 7 receivers are going to go off the board, but all of those 7 teams could use wide receiver. So even the Saints at 40, the Bears at 39. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's picked there. But for whatever reason, it doesn't feel like Jack Besh will be a first-round pick. And not that we're going to go into the weeds as deep as Bulldog and I did last week on the mechanics of the pre-draft process and the evaluation process, but we should all realize that probably half of the first-round picks are not going to be very good. Half will be solid players, and that a lot of quality future Pro Bowlers, All-Pros, will be picked on day 2 and day 3 in this draft.
How similar is this year then to last year for receiver? Because last year, Keon Coleman was the first receiver picked in round 2. There were 7 picked in round 1. We won't have that. But we did have last year what you kind of just described. If it happens that those teams that you could say need one, pick one. But could you see, again, 6 to 8 receivers going in round 2?
Yeah, I think it would almost be, if we're going to compare to last year, we had wide receivers picked at 23, 28, 31, 32, 33, 34. So 4 picks in a row were wide receivers, and 6 out of 8 picks were wide receiver. Just push that back 5 to 10 picks. So I think we're going to get the 3 to maybe 4 in the first round that we've talked a lot about, and then from potentially picks 33 to 40, we could see 4 or 5 go off the board, and then a few more later in round 2. So they ultimately got the 7 in round 1. We're not going to get that, and that was pretty rare. But, yeah, I think not even just on day 2, but round 2 really has felt like the sweet spot, and we've talked about that for the last couple months.
How you're feeling about Burden? He's come up a lot. That's like Mike's draft crush.
Finally,
so I don't mean to he's probably waiting to ask you a Burden question, but I want to make sure we don't move on from receiver before it comes up. So I'm going to do it here. What is it about him that you like so much that maybe other people are missing, or what are the dings on Luther Burden?
So the ding would probably start with that he had 60 catches for under 700 yards in his final season. But I go back to 2023 when he was 20 years old and had 82 catches for over 1,200 yards in the SEC. And at the end of the Missouri season in 2023, it was this is going to be the first wide receiver off the board. And so the production, the usage was a little weird in 24, that it was just screen-based, and they didn't let him really get down the football field very often. I thought when they did, he adjusted to it and made some difficult grabs very well. Beyond that, I like that he's young, that I just mentioned. He's only 21 years old. The production early in his career that I just mentioned, and after the catch, he is a big-time athlete. I think he's very similar in terms of size and in terms of what he can do with the football in his hands, contact, balance, and cutting, to that of DJ Moore, who was a first-round pick in 2018. So I think Luther Burden, I'm right there with Mike, that I think we're going to look back and say, we probably collectively just kind of looked too much into that final year production, when in reality, in the right usage role, he would have been more productive and widely considered a first-round pick, and will probably get picked in the second round.
That usage and role in the NFL, I sort of moved off of him as an idea weeks ago when it came up that he looked like a slot. He was being stereotyped or just sort of put in that box. He's a slot receiver in the NFL. I heard Greg Cosell a couple of Fridays ago with Brownie and Tasker on One Bills Live talking about that. And yes, he did operate a lot out of the slot, especially last year, but according to Cosell, and this just got my attention, this guy, maybe he reads Shakir is settled in as the Bills slot. But when the Bills picked Shakir, I think I remember you and a lot of other people saying he can play anywhere you want. And Cosell sort of described Burden that way as well, which allowed him to sort of re-enter my thought process for the Bills, because I don't have any need for a guy who's going to be exclusively slot. But if he's versatile enough to play Z or even X, then I think I'm back. My interest is there again.
Yeah, around 80% of the time he was in the slot in college, but I don't think at a little over 6 foot and over 200 pounds, that's not your classic slot receiver build. He's a little bit bigger than Khalil Shakir. And at Boise State, Khalil Shakir was mostly in the slot, but also made plays on the perimeter. I think if you put him there on the perimeter, so to speak, which I think we have to kind of blur the lines with that distinction, because we know, especially even in Buffalo, just watching, if you only watch Bills games, how many stacked formations and times where the wide receivers are close to the line of scrimmage, where technically the furthest receiver on the outside is in the slot. He's very close to the hash marks that Joe Brady moves those players around. This is not Andre Reed and Michael Irvin where the guys are just playing on the outside right next to the sideline. So I think Luther Burden in today's NFL, and maybe I even get a little bit too caught up in slot or outside, I think he could be useful in this offense, and there's a thought that he could be available well into the second round.
Chris, we're like-minded on a few things, running back value and this particular player. Also this, and I didn't quite realize it until today when I saw this work that you did where you used your own opinion to put a mock draft together. There are two, and this is also informed by my work on ADP chasing, where I'm learning a ton about some of these prospects, more than ever, and from our conversations with you. There are two pass catchers that don't add up for me in terms of what I hear people say about them as players and where they're projected to go. They're both projected to go earlier than it sounds like they should. And I think you would agree. One is Golden, who doesn't really have like the exact right profile for a guy that you'd necessarily project to NFL success. And the other is Tyler Warren. And I continue to see Tyler Warren as everybody's first tight end off the board. But anytime I turn anybody on, like, well, it really should be Loveland instead. But Warren is going to be, like, he's plus 500 Loveland to be the first tight end pick. That's a pretty good price. So in your mock draft today, you judged accordingly. Like, I'm not sure Golden even shows up, and Warren goes 29th. So do I have it right?
No, I think you do. I think, and it's a perfect segue from the last the last topic with Luther Burden, because talk about usage. I mean, at Penn State last season, Ty Warren, you see, and I think it's easy, and I've talked about this with the impact that Anthony Richardson has had on Jalen Milroe. I think the impact that Brock Bowers had in breaking the rookie reception record and just looking like a future All-Pro at tight end. And then people see, wow, 101 catches for Ty Warren. Like, he must just be Brock Bowers 2.0. He's not. He's someone that was utilized in a way where they're like, we don't care how we're going to do it, but we're going to get him the ball 8 to maybe even 15 times a game. We're going to line him up as the Wildcat running back in the shotgun. We're going to throw him tunnel screens, bubble screens. We're going to utilize him in a variety of ways where when you get the All-22 film and you watch, and you could even see this on the broadcast angle too, the separation ability, the explosiveness, the smoothness that it takes to run away from a linebacker when you're making a cut, not anywhere close to what we saw with Brock Bowers last year, or even Sam Laporta and Dalton Kincaid the year before that. He came into the combine with shorter arms than expected, not quite this, Rob Gronkowski type wingspan and big hands. I think he does have kind of just that natural athlete ability to him where he's going to hurdle guys, he can run over people if he needs to. But if you really look at his numbers and Matthew Golden's numbers, they're not really measuring up to classic first-round players at those positions. Like Ty Warren's missed tackle force rate, so just how many times or how frequently he was missing or forcing a missed tackle, 17% of the time. That's pretty good, especially at a high volume of catches. Brock Bowers last year was at 25%, so 17 against 25, completely different. And I know that you're a big yards per route run guy, Mike, that Matthew Golden, until really the college football playoff, his yards per route run over his entire Texas career, the last 2 seasons there when he transferred in, were not great. I think it's like almost a extended bowl game bias that we used to see in like the Brady Quinn and the Jamarcus Russell era, but we just saw it for 2 or 3 games because Texas got far into the college football playoff.
And then he ran a 4.29 on top of everything else.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Which I don't think he's that fast, but I mean, the numbers are the numbers, and that actually boosted him a little bit for me because I'm going to always rely on those numbers more than my own observations on film, but it's kind of felt like the consensus with just other draft analysts who I've talked to, he doesn't look like 4.29. Like Henry Ruggs ran 4.27, I believe, coming out of Alabama. No one ever caught him in the SEC, and that happened way too many times for Matthew Golden to actually be a 4.29 guy on the field.
So you do this project today. This is what I would do for each team. And it makes you think about, or you'll tell us, it might make you think about teams and their propensity to draft for need, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, all right, well, this team needs, it's not the best player on the board, but they really need an offensive guard or whatever it might be. How many teams do that, like maybe problematically? Do you think it's like, what do you think of that as a sort of a statement about how teams draft?
I think a lot more teams do this than they will say. I think every GM just about after the draft, number one, they'll all say, oh, this player that we got in the first round, he's the one we really wanted. When it's like, how did you know he was going to be there? Unless you had the first or second or third pick, there was probably 5 to 7 players or more that you were considering. And they'll always say, oh, he was just the highest player on our board. And that's not anything toward Brandon Beane. I really think that's every GM, when in reality, I think they are saying, all right, we're just going to evaluate this entire draft like a draft analyst would, and then just whoever's the highest ranked player, that's what we're going to ultimately do. When I think need, and I'm not totally saying that it's stupid for them to do this, but I think almost every team bakes in like, oh, we kind of need a deep tackle, we kind of need a corner, so maybe we're going to have corners a little bit higher on our board. Or like what you're saying, they have a Jack Bash relatively high, and he's the highest player left, but they're like, oh, we're actually pretty loaded at receiver. Let's go and pick the highest corner because we need corners. I think as the draft progresses, teams tend to just pick athletic flyers on day 3, and maybe that is more of where we see those best player available selections. And I think that's no surprise then that you get the Khalil Shakirs and the Christian Benfords and the L'Jarius Sneeds. I could go through a million names of guys that were picked later in the draft that maybe at the time there was like, okay, they didn't really need a corner, but they drafted this safety corner from Louisiana Tech, and then L'Jarius Sneed becomes an all-pro. So I think far too often we, and this is including myself, can get so enthralled with round 1 and what do teams need to do, and they need a defensive tackle or they need a corner, when I do think in a vacuum or in a perfect world, literally just picking the best available player is actually the best way to go about it, because as we know, rosters change so quickly in today's NFL.
How much of a case can you make for the Bills using any of those top 3 picks they have, the first and the 2 seconds, on a receiver? Because a lot of even, mocks that go further than just round 1, into round 2, they've got all 3. It's a corner, a tackle, and an edge player. I don't want to say 90% of the time, but it's a lot. It seems to me.
It's high.
Yeah, right. How much of a case? Because Sal went away for a week or so. When he was last on with me last week, he left me with he thinks the Bills will use those top 3 picks all on defense. I don't know if he said he'd be stunned if it didn't happen, but it's something he feels like that's the way it's going to go. And I'm still over here going, they traded for Amari Cooper, and like I still think a case can be made for a receiver. How about you?
I agree with that. I mean, I also agree with Sal in that's probably the most likely, if we're looking at betting odds, that the Bills do go defense. But I think a pretty strong case can be made, because here's why. The Bills have a strong track record on day 2 and day 3 of the draft. A lot of the players that they extended this offseason, and even James Cook, if that ultimately happens, were day 2 and day 3 picks. And in a span of 100 selections, or fewer than 100 selections, from 109 to 206, the Bills have 7 picks. So for as much as I don't want to say that Brandon Beane and the analytics staff are going in thinking, oh, we're not really good at first-round selections, but they would have to feel strongly about their ability to find those gems in round 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So just because, again, you don't have to just address your biggest needs in round 1 and then your second biggest need in round 2, third biggest in round 3, if someone that they absolutely love, whether it's one of the speedy receivers that they brought in for a visit, or it's a Jack Bash, or Luther Burden has this precipitous fall and we're all shocked that he's still there, because he is directly helping Josh Allen, prolonging his prime, his MVP prime, that it would make a lot of sense to go, look, we're going to just pick this player because, again, he's the best player on the board, has a direct line to impacting our quarterback, and then we still have 7 more picks to still even double dip at the corner spot, or add a defensive tackle and then an edge rusher and then go all defense on day 2 and day 3. So I wouldn't be like telling anyone that it's crazy or that there's no case for this Bills team just because the offense was so good last year that they shouldn't just keep those bullets in the chamber at the wide receiver spot.
Love it. I don't think Burden is better than 50-50 to be picked before the Bills. Do you? I think it's likelier than not that he's available at 30.
Oh, yeah. No, I would be kind of surprised if he's picked, honestly.
Okay.
Because yes, I would say 50-50 at worst for him to not be there.
Yep, agree. Just real quick, we've talked about a couple of defensive tackles and cornerbacks a lot. Where are you on at the latest here, a week away and a day, in terms of like their chances of being available? Grant, Nolan, Amos, Hairston.
I don't think the D tackles are going to be there. And that's from talking to a few people, but more of just a gut feeling in that Derek Harmon is kind of a unique guy in that he's tall and has 4 years of production, really took off last season at Oregon, big-time pass rusher. And what I've said on a few other radio spots and other podcasts that I've been on is, yeah, it's a really deep defensive tackle class. There's good players, but to get a high-caliber pass rusher at the defensive tackle spot, you usually have to get that guy in round one. So I would be surprised if he's there. And the uniqueness of Kenneth Grant, that he's 330-plus, 21 years old, has upside galore, I would be surprised if 29 teams pass on him before the Bills. I do think Trey Amos could be available, and because of maybe something off the field with Maxwell Hairston, he could also be there. So for as much as I think D tackle, maybe not the biggest need on paper, but I think would help the team the most in round one, I don't know if all of these names that we've been talking about the last couple of weeks and months at D tackle will actually be there when the Bills go on the clock.
Two other corners real quick I want to ask you about as far as first-round possibility. Ravel from East Carolina, and there's a Notre Dame guy that's coming off an injury. Morrison, I think, is the last name. Are those guys reaches at 30 because of the injuries or not?
Well, I first was saying no, but then you said because of the injuries, and that could maybe kind of like muddy the waters a little, where I don't know how much, not even that how healthy are they, but like, do teams, have the doctors told them like, hey, this is a 22-year-old coming off an ACL, he'll be completely fine, you won't even realize that he tore his ACL by October. Or with Benjamin Morrison, who had a hip injury in high school, then injured it again at Notre Dame, are they saying his explosiveness is just not going to be there? He'll be 75% as dynamic of an athlete. I would say just watching their film, though, they are two first-round caliber corners. Like in my scouting grade book, not that it's perfect, and I certainly get guys wrong, but in my, like all the categories that I grade corners, they are as good, I don't want to say as Travis Hunter, but as good as almost every other first-round corner that I've had graded the last 4 or 5 years in terms of ball skills, mirroring abilities to plant and drive in zone, also just follow in man. So I think they would give the Bills legitimate versatility and two big-time athletes, which is something that I've really been banging the table for that I think the Bills need in this secondary.
Chris, thanks a lot.
All right, guys, thanks.
Chris Trapaso each week during the pre-draft season here from CBS Sports. He'll join us again next Wednesday. Round one is Thursday night. Tomorrow, Bulldog, do you know this?
Tomorrow, the Sabres play the Flyers.
Yes. Yes, they do. And before that, our annual pre-draft special. Thursday, April 17th from 4 to 6:30, live on YouTube. The latest insights, mock draft predictions, insider information, guest appearances, Jeremy, Joe, Nate, Sal. The show is presented by your Upstate Honda dealers. Visit your local Upstate Honda dealer today for excellent deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport. Okay, the draft is coming. 803-0550 is wide receiver crazy. I know we ask that all the time. We will look for your calls after sports. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Of the NFL draft, and more pre-draft visits are being reported for the Bills. The latest name to be added to that list, Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. Howard Simon and Joe Marino have more on Amos up at our website, WGR550.com. And speaking of the draft, do join Schopp and the Bulldog for the annual pre-draft special tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on YouTube. Get the latest on who is being mocked where. Hear from the insiders and guest appearances from Jeremy White, Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, and Sal Capaccio. It's presented by Upstate Honda Dealers. For great deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport, visit your Upstate Honda dealer today. No Bisons game tonight as the game with Syracuse was postponed due to weather. It's going to be made up on Friday in Syracuse as a doubleheader. The Blue Jays take down the Braves 3-1, while the Mets, they fall to the Twins 4-3 in extra innings. And then at 7 o'clock, the Yankees will host the Royals. And then also tonight, we have night number 2 of the NBA play-in games. Heat versus Bulls at 7:30, and at 10, the Mavericks versus the Kings. Losers are eliminated, while the winners will play on Friday for a chance to become their conference's 8th seed. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
Names of guys that were picked later in the draft that maybe at the time there was like, okay, they didn't really need a corner, but they drafted this safety corner from Louisiana Tech, and then L'Jarius Sneed becomes an all-pro. So I think far too often we, and this is including myself, can get so enthralled with round one and what do teams need to do, and they need a defensive tackle or they need a corner, when I do think in a vacuum or in a perfect world, literally just picking the best available player is actually the best way to go about it, because as we know, rosters change so quickly in today's NFL.
Works for me. Chris Trapaso, CBS Sports, on with us just earlier. 803-0550 for your draft takes. You know, I was thinking about wide receivers. Like, we got to the offseason and, well, the free agent list doesn't look very strong. It was the olds. It was Diggs and Keenan Allen, and Higgins didn't come free. You know, names like that. Palmer was one of the better gets probably among free agent wide receivers. I like Diami Brown. He went to Jacksonville. I was reading quotes from the Jacksonville head coach talking about his wide receivers, and they traded Christian Kirk. They've got Brian Thomas from last year's draft, who was a monster.
Yep.
And they've got Brown, $10 million 1 year. Was that? Not nothing. No mention of Gabe Davis. You know, and for one thing, I just feel like that's kind of sad. Like, Davis got to a point, not everybody, it's never everybody, but just, you know, based on my interactions and people calling in, fans had soured on Davis. Like, they put him either next to Diggs or in the context of even the very best receivers in the league, just what he might cost. And he just sort of never met that threshold. Like, he wasn't going to be a good investment,
right.
It seems.
Second contract was not a good idea for him.
Yeah, and, like, it wasn't even really much of a debate, Davis. Like, he was just going.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's how I remember it. I felt very strongly about that, maybe even only 2 years into his career. It was like, I don't see it. You better find another guy. This is not a guy you want to extend, and you're going to need to replace him. And that did seem there was very little pushback on that, it seemed, as we went through the last 2 years of his career.
He could have been somebody the year before that the Bills had re-upped, like they do now with Bernard and Benford. Not for, like, top money, but I wonder if they were ever inclined to do that. We never really heard much about that happening either. It just felt like the entire 2023 into 2024, they were going to let him walk. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. So I don't know if he's gettable. I'm not proposing the Bills trade for him. Like, the contract is a problem, and, you know, I'm not suggesting that they should want to do that. But I hope his career just isn't over. You know, like, he was good.
Yeah.
And he's not old.
I don't think his career will be. I think the coach not mentioning him maybe doesn't feel great for him, or people who really, really like him, or his family and friends who I assume really, really like him and are rooting for him. But, you know, he's going to be their number 3 receiver, probably, right? I mean, he'll play, I think, there. They haven't moved on. So, I think, but he is getting, he's in the role that I think he was really built for. I never liked him even really as a 2. He's Mac Hollins. They replaced Gabe Davis with Mac Hollins for, what was that, $4 million or less? I mean, it was like nothing. And they got, they didn't get 200 yards and 4 touchdowns in a playoff game like Davis gave you in Kansas City in the divisional round that one year. But
what game is this?
Yeah,
what happened?
I don't remember how it ended. I don't remember how it ended. I was going to just leave it. You had to do that. I was not going to. All right. Anyway, I don't know. It can happen that like he could get cut. Like someone could show up in camp and they could save some money and make a move, and he just sort of becomes a guy that bounces around. I suppose like that. That's not a horribly unlikely scenario, I suppose, for him, but. He's never going to be the top of the, he's never going to be somebody's idea of like, oh, we need to get that guy. I don't think, especially now that Jacksonville kind of did that, and you're seeing the results.
Role player.
I thought it was really interesting. I've had my fun sort of teasing this coach down there. Cohen seems like there's a little bit of the Adam Gase oddball thing going on there with him, but I did read something from him where he just talked about how, we're running our passing offense through Brian Thomas Jr., which is what you love to hear about a guy that showed up year one and was as good as that guy was. There's no like, spread it around. No, we're going to feed. Forget everybody eats. We're all feeding him. And everybody else will get theirs because teams will focus on him and it won't always go to him. But our passing game, our concepts are designed around getting him off, which I think sounds like a pretty good plan.
Yeah, I do too, I guess.
I might be overstating that a little, but it read very much to me like, oh yeah, no, we know who our guy is.
It's also part of why they got rid of Kirk, I would assume.
Yeah.
Thinking of what he might amount to production-wise and whether that's worth the money. He could be worth the money if you used him as a 1B even. Maybe they had no plans to do that. So he goes to Houston. Talking about what the coach said there, Chris Greer in Miami. So I guess Jalen Ramsey, who they plan to try to trade, would be the 5th Dolphins team captain from last year that would be off the team. Maybe that's all of them. They have 4 other team captains who are gone. And Ramsey, I read, would make 5. I've never been big on team captains, but that seems like a little bit significant. Mm-hmm. And he was the GM of the Dolphins, the brother of former Sabre Mike Greer, by the way, was asked about the leadership void.
Yeah, I saw this too.
And he mentioned Tyreek Hill, but not Tua.
Right.
How do you not just know to mention the quarterback in that every time in that question?
You just gave a massive contract extension.
How is he not a captain?
Right. I don't know. That was at best an oversight. At worst, it's a window into what could be a troubling situation. If they don't feel like he can lead their team, that's nowhere you want to be.
And that hasn't sort of come to the surface yet. He's been there for 5 or 6 years now? That wouldn't have already been established? I don't think it's an oversight. I don't think it's malintended or anything like that, but I just think he's not a leader. Maybe that's just the truth of it, is that the Dolphins just don't look at him that way. And does he have to be? It would be nice if your quarterback, so much is riding on him, had that. I don't want to just make too much of an assumption here, but very weird for a quarterback not to be mentioned specifically about leadership.
Right. At the very least, teams they fall all over themselves to prop that part of a quarterback's reputation up, even if it's untrue. You can be skeptical about it,
right,
and roll your eyes at it, but you also just sort of accept okay, well, he's their quarterback and they're paying him $50 million, so of course they're going to talk about him like that. To not even include him and mention Tyreek Hill, who quit, said he wanted to be traded. I mean, they walked all that back, but wow.
The Dolphin vibes are not great.
No, I'm trying to really get my head around what they are all about. Like, what are they doing? Are they backing up? Like, is this window closing? Because I don't know. Like, what's happening with Ramsey? Like, he didn't Greer say, like, we're not the. I'm not sure why Ramsey wants to be traded or is on the trade block, but it sounds like it was Ramsey's idea. So okay, why? Like, does he think it's falling apart there, or what? Like, what exactly is going on? Because
good question.
If like I don't like that player at the price he's at right now. It's like as a trade idea, as badly as the Bills need a number 2 corner, but if you're still in a window where you're winning or thinking about winning the division, the conference, the Super Bowl, I don't know about unloading him right now. I don't know. Maybe they have a replacement loaded and not, who knows? It's a little like Diggs last year. Like, the age is right on the edge where you could go, okay, is the return here good? Like, the last chance we probably have to get something for him is right now. So maybe we better do it, and we'll just live with it. But I don't know. I mean, they already paid him a $4 million bonus for this coming season. So that they're out that part of it. Like, that's going to hit them when they move him. And that's not insurmountable, but it does indicate a lack of foresight on the situation. Because if you were of the mind that you were going to move this player, I think you would have done it before you had to give him $4 million.
I think it was Armando Salguero who had the clip of Greer talking about the leadership and Ramsey and that, if you wanted to look for it. 803-0550 as we talk more about the NFL draft 1 week from tomorrow night. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
More
She is in Dallas, on the Dallas staff now.
I don't think I would have been able to answer quickly and authoritatively if you'd asked me, hey, do you know where Ken Dorsey ended up? I probably saw it when it happened and went, oh, good for him, and just forgot about it. So I guess no.
I don't know that he's a coordinator. He might not be a coordinator.
I don't believe he is.
Brian Schottenheimer is the new head coach of the Cowboys. A little bit excited for Dallas in the draft to see if they go running back or receiver at pick 12. They could. They're always they're so easy to make fun of. Jerry Jones, they've had good teams, but they never get there, and they make all the money, so they're an easy team to make fun of.
But yet they seem to constantly be squabbling with their best players about getting the big contracts. Like it takes them a while. They end up waiting until the market has exploded, and then not great.
That too, yep. But I don't think they have to be far away. Right? Prescott missed a lot of time last year. Lamb is great. And, Parsons is there if they get that figured out. I don't think they have to be far away. I'm not sure the win total, but I kind of like the idea of one of these studs at receiver going there to pair up with Lamb. Ferguson's good. You'll see. Tonight we have the NBA again, Bulldog, the play-in games. Mm-hmm. 2 more play-in games. These are much better than the college tournament play-in games. I love this format.
I like it too. I would like to see the NHL adopt it.
Hockey should have it.
Not just so my team can get in. Just I just think it's a good way to do it.
Wouldn't have helped this year anyway.
No.
But it's for me it's only ever going to happen if they can sell it, and they're clearly able to do that. So it meets that criteria. But it also is a good sort of, is mitigator a word? Like a way to make the teams that are not the best teams during the season have it be like kind of one and done potential. Where, yeah, you were good enough to be top 8, but that's really not that good. That's the same in hockey.
Right, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're not that much better probably if you're 7 than 10 is. So I don't think I think it's equitable to have them play one another for an opportunity to actually get into the playoffs.
And the team that the highest ranked team of those that wins the first night, like Golden State, is through. Like they don't have to play again. So there's a pretty good advantage there being higher among those teams. But 9 and 10 get a chance. And I'd enjoy that in hockey. If we had that this weekend, or they shortened the season to have it be right now, same as the NBA,
right.
I'd enjoy that. It wouldn't be Buffalo. Last year, or 2 years ago, it would have been.
When they missed by a point. Yeah, that's right.
I'm also not looking to, sneak in.
Right.
I don't want to get there, honestly.
I just think it would be interesting, objectively speaking, without any ties to, like, who, whether it would benefit, the end of a 14-season playoff drought.
Do you know who had the worst record this year in the NBA? There's a lottery, so it's not like they'll necessarily pick first.
There was a time where I knew, but now I don't. No, I don't know.
Utah.
Okay.
Had the worst record in the NBA. Then Washington, then Charlotte. Bottom 3.
Good luck to them.
Good luck to them. That's right. A thought on the upcoming Bills season. We'd love your draft take as well. 803-0550. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog back after sports here on WGR.
Official voice.
We are just over 1 week away from the start of the NFL draft and more pre-draft visits for the Bills coming down. The reports and the latest name added to that list, Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. Howard Simon and Joe Marino have more on Amos up at our website, WGR550.com. And speaking of the draft, do join Schopp and the Bulldog for the annual pre-draft special tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Streaming live on YouTube. Get the latest on who is being mocked where, hear from the insiders, and guest appearances from Jeremy White, Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, and Sal Capaccio. Presented by your Upstate Honda dealers. For great deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport, visit your Upstate Honda dealer today. 6 games in the NHL tonight, just one, though, with playoff implications. Montreal hosts Carolina at 7. The Canadiens can clinch the playoffs with a win or a loss in overtime or shootout. If they do not get that 1 point, Columbus can clinch tomorrow with a win in regulation versus the Islanders. No Bison's game today, as the game with Syracuse was postponed due to weather. It'll be made up on Friday in Syracuse as a doubleheader. Blue Jays take down the Braves 3-1. A note on that game: the Blue Jays pitching staff set a franchise record 19 strikeouts in a 9-inning game, while the Mets, they fall to the Twins 4-3 in extra innings. Then at 7, the Yankees are going to host the Royals. And we do have night number 2 of the NBA play-in games. Heat versus Bulls at 7:30. Then at 10, it's the Mavericks taking on the Kings. Losers are eliminated, while the winners will play again on Friday for a chance to become their conference's 8th seed. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet, celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp.
Name any word in less than a second. I will tell you how many letters are in it. But I cannot do anything mechanically. I don't even know how to put a game together for 3-year-olds.
And the Bulldog.
Fool me once, shame on you. If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
On WGR Sports Radio 550.
Hearing myself say that, I just realized we're coming up on folding chair season.
What's this now?
Well,
The chair in the bag?
the chair that you unfold, and one we have has a tray attached to it.
Sure, yeah.
And I've been known to just not take a chair and stand because I don't want to have to unfold it and figure out how to do that.
Oh. Is that complicated for you, huh?
Yes.
That's tough.
Yes, I'd be embarrassed to have to unfold the chair, like struggle with it, and then fold it back up at the end.
I don't have any anxiety about unfolding the chair. It's the folding it back up and getting it back in the bag. Like if it, the bag. The bag.
No.
Right? So you got the legs, and you're trying to get it in the bag, and then the part where the seat is all bunched up, and you're trying to get it in the bag.
No.
That. For instance, like say at a large venue, this happened to me at a festival a couple of years ago. Like, oh, we want to leave. The show's still going on, and I'm here. I know I'm blocking people's views right now, and I'm trying to get the chairs in the bag so we can get the chairs into the wagon, and we can all roll out of here with everything intact. But it's dark. I've had a couple of drinks. I can't get the chair in the bag. And
See what a nightmare this can be?
Now my wife is looking at me like, can you get the chair in the bag, please? The people behind us are trying to watch Wilco.
No, I would run for the hills and put the bag in the chair in the bag later.
Leave the chair.
Leave the
chair.
bag.
Just forget it.
Leave it all.
Leave it all. I'll get a new chair.
Not worth it. Not worth it.
I'll get a new chair out of some beer promotion or something. I don't need this chair.
There's 12 letters in folding chair, but
the thing
do not
is
let me near one.
We have 2 of those that are in my truck year round, and they're so good. They're so sturdy that I have to take. I would not ever consider leaving those chairs anywhere. They're really good. Like, we are not small people. The cheap chair outside at the big home improvement stores. I can't. Hey, these are free with a purchase. No, I'm sitting in that thing and it is exploding. I need something a little more substantial. And when I've got it and it works, I got to hang on to it.
It's just so hard to figure out how to unfold a chair. I'll just stand. I won't be in your way, I promise.
There's a little like trigger button on the one side, on the one leg that you got to press in order to get it to. Which side? Where's the little button? No. I will go to the game, but I will not bother with the chair. I've never been able to be the guy. The meme that makes the rounds of the like when something's getting good and there's that guy. I can see it. Maybe I'll do a horrible job describing it. You won't know. The guy that walks up with the chair and just like has it by one leg and does this and it's open and he sets it down like, okay, I'm here to watch this now. I've never had that moment in my life.
What a man that is.
I'm envious of that dude.
What a guy.
That's a move. That's a power move.
Yep.
I do not have that in the arsenal.
So in talking about the draft, we're always going around on it and which positions are more of need for the Bills, which positions are stronger or weaker in the draft class, and on every day. And a lot of the analysis, I feel like you have to not forget about, sort of try to get in the mind of the GM. And, who knows if you're going to be right in your attempt to do that? Who knows what he's really thinking? What do you think he is thinking? Like, whether it's wide receiver or through some other position or path, a lot of my efforts to try to predict this thing, I end up going to, all right, well, would Bean really pick a pass catcher first for the third year in a row? Like, would he really do that? And it's a guess, because you could easily think, why not? If there's a good one, you could say they need one. We do. We think they need one. Like, you could say that. You could come to that conclusion. Chris Trapaso's point, Evan Silva's point last week, they have lots of picks. You can get your other stuff over the course of the weekend, So as long as you didn't think he wouldn't be hung up by the point that they've done this the last 2 years, and neither guy has really worked out. So I don't know. Like, that's a question we can't answer, but I think it's a question that you do want to be asking about this thing. And I think, if it's me, I'd have a hard time doing that because I need defense now, and it's there. It's going to be there in this draft. Like, it's sort of like put on a tee for me. Maybe. We'll see. But I think it's likely to be like that. And so let me just hit the ball and not be subject to, are you smarter than everybody else? Or like, what happens to Coleman now? Or all the questions that you would get. I still think, like, say it's Burden. If you get a wide receiver and he's good, that will give you a better chance of winning a Super Bowl than a really good defensive tackle or even corner. I don't know if I want to say, like, if you get a great corner out of pick 30, that's important.
Yeah.
That's a really good get if you can do that. I wouldn't say that about tackle, though.
Yeah, I think it's, like Chris was saying last hour, I think it's probably pretty unlikely that you get that caliber of defensive tackle that late. Especially, and I didn't get around to bringing this up while Chris was talking with us, but the point is there to be made. Like, we all reacted to the Super Bowl. The rest of the football world would have reacted to the Super Bowl. So you see what the Eagles did and how they did it and what kind of personnel they used to do it. And there's a chance that because of that, any of these defensive tackles that have the potential or either are already capable of impacting the passer from the interior, that those guys are going to be at a premium. So if that's the case, and I'm left with, sure, I have a need there. I need a space eater guy, and that's Grant is so appealing in that way from Michigan because he's young, he's big, and I think the way I know Chris views him, Trapaso, like he still has, because he's young, the potential to develop pass rush moves and become an impact player in that way. But at the very least, you're getting the ground floor is he's going to be a force defending the run next to whomever, Ed Oliver in the case of the Bills. the guys you're getting on Saturday that play that position almost decidedly don't have that upside. They're big. They're going to handle, they'll take on double teams, and they're going to keep guards off your linebackers and all the stuff that you're looking to some extent for that position next to Oliver to give you. But there's just probably not going to be any real penetration, plays in the backfield, quarterback. It's just, you're not getting that. So depending on what you think you really need, that impacts how you go about, navigating the draft, right? If you can get your hands on a guy that has that upside, like if Grant falls to 30, I think it would blow my mind if the Bills didn't pick him.
Okay.
But if he goes, then what? Like, what am I left with here? Like Walter Nolan, and Nolan's a different sort of player. He's bigger than Oliver, but he's more of a penetrator than he is a space eater. So I'm not saying they couldn't use that either, but if those guys that have the potential to impact the quarterback are gone, then maybe that removes defensive tackle at 30 as a possibility. I'll just fall back and I'll grab some 320-pound guy on Saturday that can be in the rotation with Daquan Jones, and hopefully it helps our run defense, but there's not a lot of You're not building the Eagles' defensive line out of that draft pick. It's a role player, and that's it. And that's really all you probably should expect at that position on that day of the draft, fourth round and beyond. So, okay, that's off the table. If they like either of these injured corners, all right, Morrison from Notre Dame or Ravel from East Carolina, and think they can get him at 56 or 62. I always botch that, but I think I got it. I'll speak it into existence that I'll have it nailed down. The draft is only a week away.
You have time.
So they can get that. Okay, all right, we like that. There's good value there. Then, you're talking about what? Edge or receiver at 30. I think safety is maybe there too, sneakily, depending on how the board falls.
Okay, that's a little risky.
Yeah,
on corner, but
yep, it is. I feel like receiver. I want my GM to not be, and you're not saying different. You're saying if it were you, and I would cop the same thing. I think I'd probably be aware of. What I'm being criticized for, what's working and not working, and how this is going to look. How am I going to sound talking about it, right? If I draft Luther Burden at 30 and I got to meet the media at midnight, and people are going to ask me what this means to Keon Coleman or Dalton Kincaid and their role in the offense, I probably have thought about it. I maybe even have rehearsed it with PR. What am I going to say?
I know what to say.
Go.
Look, we just went to the one game from the Super Bowl with a team where a lot of guys got the ball. That's still the plan here.
This is another guy that can get the ball.
And this is another guy who can do that, and he's, super talented. You wouldn't want to say almost definitely more talented than everybody else we have, but that would be true, in my opinion at least. So, that's it. We'll figure that out. Just one more weapon for Allen.
Yeah.
We got the MVP quarterback. Is it not correct to say that the receiver is more important than defensive tackle? You don't have to think that. And you also just look at the holes, the roster, and think, well, I just don't need that as badly. Whether it's more important in a vacuum or not, it might not be. You might think it's not more important for the Bills. But corner and D tackle for me are very different. And they both sound like positions where there are like two guys. Well, corner's more than two, but we never talk about anybody else. Like Will Johnson, is that somebody?
Well, Michigan, he's supposed to be the first corner taken.
Yeah, and obviously Travis Hunter. We never talk about them. It's Amos and Hairston, who visit with the Bills, and they're kind of down in that range. So that's what's similar to defensive tackle is you have a couple of guys that at every other mock draft, they're right there. So it seems realistic, not definite. We could also talk about the draft this way, which is kind of already what we're doing. Trapaso today, and you're welcome to join us at 803-0550. His project was, okay, here's my mock draft for the week. He does one every week. But this is what I would do with every pick. So he has Luther Burden at 6 to the Raiders. Way above McMillan, or not way above. McMillan might have been 9, but like above McMillan, above Golden. Like,
way above consensus.
Way above consensus. Besh at 10 is even wayer above consensus. So, like, that's how he did it. And, all right, what would you do at 30? Right? Like, there's still 29 players you got to figure out first. I guess if you wanted, you could do this yourself and go through every team and then get to 30 and be like, all right, what would I do here? It's kind of the same, but it's not predicting what we think they'll do. It's what we would do.
Right.
And I think I would be torn between Burden and if one of those corners, I liked him and he's on the board. I'd be torn. I think I would pick the receiver.
And Hairston and Amos are the two you're thinking of,
yes.
The corners. Whereas I'm thinking about the injured guys.
Yes, and the second round.
Not so much at 30.
Although he put your one injured guy at like 12 today, didn't he? For Dallas? I think he did. I might have closed it.
Yeah, no. One of them. Yeah, was it Ravel maybe?
Yeah.
He had way up high.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I mean, I still think this is, and it's always true, but I'll bet this year, I don't know who like what number of first round picks from the mock draft world do guys get right? Right? Like what's a good, I think like 6 or 7 is really good.
Yes.
If you nail, right? I feel like that number, I mean, I don't know, there's so many of them and there's just so much luck in it that, maybe somebody will still hit that. But I just feel like the average analyst out there that's doing numerous mock drafts over the years, when they settle on their last one, okay, this is what I really think is going to happen, I'll bet the hit rate is lower than ever this year. Just because I think there's just more variance than normal. Fewer bona fide first round grades, this plateau from mid first round at worst into maybe through day 2. That's just such a wide array of guys and team needs, and I just really a really hard exercise. I mean, it always is, but I feel like it's harder than most years I can remember thinking about.
But it's easier than predicting the schedule.
Sure.
I've started my schedule
yeah, you have.
work. You want to see? Can I show the camera?
Yeah. Well, hold on. Is this, you don't want to, if this is valuable, you don't want to just give this away.
I feel like our listeners deserve it.
Yeah, go ahead and show it to them. I'm just kidding around.
I mean, I've done a lot, but I do want to give it away.
All right. Well,
this is my prediction so far. This is my working 2025 Bills schedule.
Week 4, Philadelphia.
That's it. That's my first prediction. Philadelphia is here week 4. I think I'm going to put it at a 425.
Okay.
Not a night game. What do you think? You like it? You think I'm on point here? Does it make sense? Does it work for you?
No, I hate it.
Philadelphia.
How could you possibly think the league is going to schedule the Bills to play the Eagles in week 4?
I know.
Don't you know what week 4 means?
I don't.
I don't either. I'm just trying to be hyperbolic here.
I don't.
I'm trying to be.
I like it early.
Trying to be the shouty shows. You don't know anything about the schedule. What do you think you're doing over there? Philadelphia.
Okay. I'll push the Chiefs off.
They're not even playing Philadelphia. Sorry. Go ahead.
That would be a bad job by me if they were not actually a team on the schedule, but they are.
And a bad job by me if I were legitimately arguing that point. Because I'm aware that they are playing.
I want to push the Chiefs off into, like the usual kind of November game. Ravens and Bengals come in. Those are both great. And I don't know. I haven't decided where I want to put those yet. If I get 3 right, is that good?
Probably.
Yeah, right?
Probably. Yeah.
If I make an honest effort, I don't just put Miami for every game, knowing I'll get 2 right that way.
You get big bonus points if you get the opener, right? Didn't I get Bills-Jets a couple of years ago? That right, the Aaron Rodgers game, like I nailed that.
In prime time.
Right. So, yeah, not Monday night specifically, but prime time Bills at Jets.
Yes, you did. I gave you money
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah,
We had
I
a
did.
bet
I
on
won.
that.
I won. Yeah, that's
You
right.
won money on that. What's that now?
Week 1?
Who is? You were going to say something else.
I don't think I was.
Who else would know? Who is what is the division game that's the most interesting now? Rodgers, the Bills and the Jets have met in prime time lots of times over the years, and they weren't always good teams when they met. So, there's a rivalry element. Rodgers elevated that. Like Rodgers going to the Jets, that's why you liked it so much was his debut.
His debut,
on 9/11.
the Bills, Josh Allen.
On 9/11.
It just totally worked.
In New York,
Yep.
Monday night against Buffalo, it did work. And then he went down in 4 plays, but still.
And the Bills still managed to lose the game somehow.
Now it's Justin Fields.
Yeah.
What's the division game that has the most cachet? Miami has kind of been there, done that.
But
Vrabel.
I wanna get to New England, and maybe sitting here right now, I can't say that. I think I still would say Miami, despite I don't know, we were talking about them half an hour ago, and I'm not really sure what's happening there. Maybe there's cracks, and I don't know, they've lost a lot of guys, and now they're looking to trade Jalen Ramsey. But I still think that I don't know what the win totals are looking like right now, but they must be second in the division as far as win totals go.
Oh, I used to know.
Because New England is still speculative. What I think could happen this year is that New England gets more right than we thought, right? They added a lot of guys, but none of it in free agency, but it's not a lot of it is really that impressive. Oh, whoa, this guy, that guy. Oh, look at New England. Look what New England's doing. But the quarterback is good. I think he should get better. I like the coach a lot. I think the coordinator is very talented. If their games are far apart, then maybe the first meeting isn't that juicy, but the second one could be really hot. Like New England could. It would not blow my mind if New England passes Miami this year.
No,
I don't think I want to bet on it. Unless maybe the odds are really good. Maybe I do because that's the kind of bet I'd like to make because, I love losing. But I feel like New England, if this is a horse race and, we're coming around the last turn, Miami's in front, but New England is charging, I think. And they could, by Thanksgiving, be the most interesting team in the division outside of the Bills.
I don't love everything about what the Bills are right now, but I think the division may never have looked easier. They've won the last 5, right?
Yes, it's 5 in a row. Even like Miami, I think I never bought the Jets. So, but there was reason to believe it could be better than it ended up being. So last year at this time, the division definitely looked harder because Miami, I still believe Miami lost the AFC East on the last day of the 2023 season to the Bills. Mm-hmm. So that was our walking off point for talking about the division was that. And I thought, okay, they're still there. They're going to be something. You're going to have to deal with them. I was dismissive of the Jets and the Patriots starting over, but still, I didn't have to be right about the Jets. Sitting here today, the Jets are nothing. Miami's taken on water, and New England is iffy. I think it looks easier this year than it did last year. I wonder if that's reflected in the odds.
I will tell you after the update. Give you the win totals. 803-0550, some drafts, some schedule stuff. Looking ahead to the 2025 season. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog here, WGR.
Another name has been added to pre-draft visits for the Bills with just over a week to go before the start of the NFL draft, and that name is Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. Howard Simon and Joe Marino have more on Amos up at our website, WGR550.com. And speaking of the draft, join Schopp and the Bulldog for the annual pre-draft special tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m., streaming live on YouTube. Get the latest on who is being mocked where, hear from the insiders, and guest appearances from Jeremy White, Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, and Sal Capaccio. It is presented by Upstate Honda dealers for great deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport. Visit your Upstate Honda dealer today. We do have 6 games in the NHL tonight, just one, though, with playoff implications. Montreal, they host Carolina at 7, and the Canadiens can clinch the playoffs tonight with a win or a loss in overtime. If they don't get that 1 point, though, Columbus can clinch tomorrow with a win in regulation versus the Islanders. No Bison's game tonight versus Syracuse. It was postponed due to weather. It's going to be made up on Friday in Syracuse as a doubleheader. The Blue Jays take down the Braves 3-1. Note on that game, the Jays pitching staff sets a franchise record 19 strikeouts in a 9-inning game, while the Mets, they fall to the Twins 4-3 in extra innings. And then coming up at 7, the Yankees will host the Royals. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Headlines. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
After a couple of weeks of discussions between ourselves internally and Jalen and his representation, we decided that it was probably in the best interest for all parties to move forward. I will say these decisions aren't done quickly and they're not taken lightly because we spent a lot of time this offseason working through this, talking through things. At the end of the day, Jalen did not ask for a trade, so we went through the process and just felt that after numerous conversations and then talking last week with Jalen and his agent, it was best to move forward and it was best interest of the Miami Dolphins and for Jalen Ramsey.
Chris Greer, Dolphins GM, brother of former Sabre Mike Greer, by the way. Twice he said best interest for everybody is to move forward. He doesn't mean move forward, he means move on. Move forward doesn't have to mean like break up, but that's what he means. He means to say move on, but we got it. The Dolphins. So you and I both did some numbers hunting here.
I did a little sleuthing here, and my guess I think was on. Last year, I've got a story from September at CBS Sports that's giving me odds from my friends at FanDuel, and early September last year, Jets favored to win the division at plus 160, Bills plus 195, Dolphins close behind plus 210, Patriots, forget it, plus 2,600. This year, same outlet, right? Not CBS, but FanDuel. Bills minus 220, Dolphins plus 500, Patriots plus 550, Jets plus 1,500. So the gap between the presumed winner or the favorite to win the division and the second favorite is much larger this year than it was last year.
Yes, that is how I remember it as well. It was kind of a 3-team bunch at the top of the odds going into the season, and through the season, that was a talking point, that the Bills were not the preseason favorite. They'd won 4 in a row, and the Jets instead were the betting favorite, not by much. Just the fact that it was close,
right,
was interesting enough.
And that the Bills weren't on top,
right? Yeah,
but all of that. So it's there's not as much variance at the bottom. New England was a bigger underdog last year than the Jets are this year. But up at the top, there's a bigger gap between the favorite and the second and third choices, whereas last year that was really bunched.
Also, win totals. I don't know how much this moves. I mean, what's going to happen in the draft to move this very much from any of these 4 teams? Buffalo 11.5, the over minus 145 at BetMGM. The bloom is not off of this rose. Over 11.5, you got to pay 145 to win 100. 12-5 at least for this Bills team with that schedule. Remember that guy who called and said, "How can anybody think they'll actually be good?" Just remembered that guy.
I do remember that guy.
How could anybody believe that? The betting market, actual money, over 11.5 wins, minus 145. Miami is second, 8.5, under minus 130. So people are betting the under on the Dolphins at 8.5, which is right down the middle. New England, 7.5, over is minus 125, a small lean to the over on the Patriots winning at least 8.
All right.
That's pretty flattering to them.
Yeah.
I know what you've said about them a lot, just like there are things to like, but
I'm not sure how many good players they have yet.
Yeah, that's 500.
I like the coach. I like the quarterback, first of all. That's number one. I couldn't have been more wrong about him at this time last year. I did not think that was going to work. But it looks to me promising. So I'm into that. And I like the coach and I like the coordinator on offense. But, I don't know. They got a stud corner, and I don't know. I don't know how many really good players they've got. And really on offense, just still not much. I mean, Diggs, they've added Diggs.
Jets finally 5.5, over is minus 150. So it's a small number, 5.5, but bettors are taking the over on the Jets to win at least 6. Which I'd probably also do. I'm a sucker for the Jets. My Jets. I like Fields. I like that he is getting one more chance. Last year, got to the offseason, does Chicago keep him or trade him? And, go back and forth. They end up basically giving him away. Like the Steelers paid a 6th. The Steelers paid so little to get Fields. Like, it was not promising. It was not exactly, here's $200 million.
It wasn't the kind of price that you would think he's going to get every chance in the world to have it work.
He almost was more likely to just get pulled, which he did, if he was going to start at all. Wilson was hurt in camp, and Fields gets the start, but as soon as they had any reason to, they took him out. So that kind of felt like it. The league voted on him last year by that, and they voted against it, against Fields. But here are the Jets, who gave him a pretty good contract for a couple years.
Yep, 20 a year.
He'll get a chance to redeem himself, if you will. So I like that that's happening.
I wish him luck. I don't think it's going to work. I just don't. I think the things that he doesn't get right, seeing the field, like going through recognizing what's happening. I don't. That can get better. I just don't know if you're so far off it to begin with that you're ever going to get to a place where you're anything more than just a guy that, you have value, you have athleticism, you can make some big plays, and maybe I trust you as my backup, and I hope I can get through a few games if I need you. But holy cow, I'd be stunned if that worked. Mm-hmm. Just really, I don't think he's got it. So, good luck to you, Jets.
Maybe we'll throw down some reverse AFC power rankings at the top of the hour. We haven't done them in more than 2 weeks. See where the Jets slot in. It is cold today. You notice that?
I did, yes.
I was listening to the morning show when their show started at 6.
Congratulations.
They start at 6 in the morning.
Believe me.
Wow.
I know.
Take a minute to appreciate that.
I live with someone who participates in the show, and I hear him leave the house every morning at 4:45.
You and I have both done mornings. I don't know how I did it. My alarm was 4:30. And then just the show I worked on in the morning started at 5. Maybe my alarm would have had to be 4 or 4:15. I don't know about 4:30. I had a 20-minute drive.
Yeah, that's tight. Yeah.
So amazing work by those guys. Yes. 6 in the morning.
Yes.
I'm already almost home from the airport this morning at that time, and I'm listening. They're talking about how there were Jeremy, I think, said he saw 2 snowflakes in the air walking into the building today, and snow on the cars. I've been meaning to mention this. Go ahead and tell me at the end what you think of this as a segue. Do you notice every time you either get to work or leave work that there are Q-tips all over the parking lot?
I have seen I don't notice it all the time, but I have see. I'm worried now. This is sort of blending in with the upstairs bathroom in my house. The floor there, there's often Q-tips there.
I bet
that I, of course, am never responsible for leaving on the floor, but others in the home are, which is really annoying because I end up picking them up because that's how I am, and it sucks. Anyway, sorry. Sidebar. I have noticed them in the parking lot. Yes.
Is there any good explanation for that?
No.
Why would there be Q-tips in the parking lot? Is there something I don't know about how Q-tips are used that I'm embarrassing myself right now?
There's some subculture drug thing that I don't know about that like people are coming to the parking lot after hours and using Q-tips in some way. I don't know.
I bet in that little square where maybe 10 cars park closest to our back door here, right now, unless somebody has just cleaned them up today, there are 20 Q-tips on the ground in just that space. I started to notice them one day recently, and then now like I get out there and I look for Q-tips on the ground. I guess I should pick them up since I've noticed them. I don't know.
No, you shouldn't.
Well, I could.
Sure. I wonder if it's people that take the trash out of the building, stuff is falling out as they're heading for where the dumpsters are, maybe. That could be an explanation. I don't mean to accuse the cleaners of being sloppy. I just think maybe that could be a thing.
But that would mean that for some reason, Q-tips are getting out.
And nothing
else.
Yeah, that would be weird.
So
I think that would be weird.
I'm thinking like somebody must use them in their car and then just throw them out the window.
It's like those like
a cigarette.
It's like those little floss things now, right? The floss that had the little handles, those things. I find those around my house, like
in your
sidewalk, on the sidewalk in the street around my house, kind of all the time.
Okay.
And that seems like a thing people would do in their cars. They've got them in their cars. They're going somewhere. They're flossing and they're throwing it out the window. Thanks.
Yes.
Appreciate you very much.
Like a cigarette?
Littering.
Somehow as a society we decided that was okay.
Yeah.
To throw smoking cigarette butts out the window.
Yep.
Somehow we decided that was okay. Q-tips, though.
Yeah, that is an odd one. I don't know what that is.
Would you ever think to not collect that in your car's garbage and so would you ever think to just throw it out the window?
I don't know why I would ever think of using a Q-tip anywhere other than in my bathroom.
Okay, well I agree. I'm the same way.
How's that? Like what? I've had a lot of cars. I've had a lot of different. I mean, I've been in this life for a long time now. But previous to this, I did run in some different circles and have some different responsibilities. I've never had Q-tips in my car. Quick, I got to clean my ears.
No.
What? I don't.
But if you did, for me it would be like a tissue that I used or something.
If I did, I would get out of my car with them in my hand, maybe rolled up in a tissue, and I would throw them in the nearest garbage receptacle I would find. I would never throw them on the ground.
Before you would leave the parking lot? No, you wouldn't necessarily walk back inside and throw them out.
Well, if I'm on my way in, that's what I would do.
Okay, okay, that's right.
And it seems like if you were leaving work, that seems like a weird time to think, I got to use Q-tips now.
So you think it's a morning thing?
Yeah.
Okay.
If anything, I don't know.
What is it?
It's weird. That is odd.
You want to go out there and see now?
I do.
I'm going out there.
I don't know why you're playing a road game with Q-tips.
Well put. Dustin is on WGR. Hi, Dustin.
Hey, guys. How are y'all?
Well, we're talking about Q-tips.
I mean,
I see that. You may need to.
I think I'm good.
Your cameras or something on what's going on out there. I don't know. That seems concerning, but
yes.
I just had some thoughts on maybe like y'all are talking about earlier, what they should do with the first pick. I got to tell you, I'm disappointed if they do go offense with that first pick. I'll get over it quick, I'm sure, but I imagine an impact on that defensive line affects so much more than a receiver does. It affects the way Ed Oliver plays. It affects the way the linebackers play, and it affects the secondary too. If they can hit on just an awesome talent inside there that they've been trying to fill with 30-year-old free agents for the past few years, then I think it affects so much more than somebody that catches the ball from the best quarterback in the NFL, that he's got plenty of guys that can do that.
Okay.
That's just my take on that.
All right. Thank you.
I feel like I have been all over the road on this so far, which maybe it's interesting, but it's not consistent. Season ends, Bills lose to the Chiefs. I've got Josh Allen with the ball in his hands again, where a touchdown is going to give me the lead, maybe even win the game if I get the clock right. And I don't come through. The offense, they don't get it done. And yes, could the defense use improvement? Of course. In 13 seconds, of course, informs all of that, because we're still, like, the smoking gun is still in McDermott's hand from that. And so McDermott is in the crosshairs, and he's the defense, and we love Allen, and so it can't be his fault, right? But I always want to, he's great. I think I want, whatever the score is, whether the defense gave up 35 or 25, I've got the ball on their side of the field with 2 minutes to go, and a touchdown wins me the game. I like my chances. I think I should be able to do it, and they haven't come through. He hits Diggs, it doesn't work, whatever. It hasn't worked. So I don't think it's wrong to say he has not come through in those situations. I think objectively that's fair. Doesn't mean he sucks or he's trash. I love him. He's great, but it hasn't worked. Then we watch the Super Bowl, right? So that's where I'm standing when it's over. I need that guy to come through. If I'm going to win anything, that's the moment. Okay, Super Bowl, we see the Eagles, and they are just they are the big brother holding the little brother back with, like, the palm of their hand on his forehead, and the Chiefs are just flailing their arms, and they just can't do it, and the Eagles are just go, ha, 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 ha. Like, okay, well, I guess I need to do more on defense. I need to invest in defense. A couple more weeks go by, and I realize, well, wait a minute. I don't need to beat the Chiefs 44-20. I just need to beat them. And I was that close. And I had the ball. So, I don't know. I don't want to be so quick to just say I'm all set on offense. I need more. Whatever the score is, I've got the ball, and I can win. With that dude at quarterback, you should love your chances there. So how about I make sure I get that really nailed down? I'm veering more back to there, which was, again, my original place when the season ended.
I think the question for you is to what extent you think you're going to fix that. You're not talking about drafting a replacement for Allen.
No, of course not.
You're talking about
helping
adding
him. Yeah. Another piece, an explosive piece, something that keeps me from needing a fourth down desperation heave to Dalton Kincaid.
I get that. I don't know if the Bills would even know how to use it. They've so avoided doing that player. Like, would they even know how to use it? But, it's fun conversation. I'm going outside. 803-0550, Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
More of Schopp and the Bulldog.
tackle with their first-round pick, Walter Nolan.
Contest time, be caller 5 at 716-221-4WGR. That's 4947. To win yourself a pair of lawn tickets to see Breaking Benjamin in 3 days Grace at Darien Lake Amphitheater on September 17th. Courtesy of Live Nation. Tickets are on sale now at livenation.com. Good luck. All right, what's the side?
I was outside for maybe 3 minutes. I counted 8 Q-tips on the parking lot.
Do we know if those are newly littered Q-tips? Or
No,
were they,
I don't know anything about their history.
You don't know. There's no date. There's no timeline on these Q-tips.
I didn't get right up close to the ground and take it.
Yeah.
I just know there are 8 Q-tips on the ground between our cars. 8. It was super windy yesterday too, by the way. Like, these things would blow around. Yet there are 8 right there. How long has this Q-tip scam been going on for? Like, just, it's got to be one person, right?
Those things get wet though. They'll just seal to the ground.
Okay,
they're probably not blowing around.
I'm not saying they have to blow around, but
it has been windy. Yes, I mean yesterday especially. Holy cow! When we got out of here, it was fierce. The poor awnings on my porch are taking a beating. I hung them up too early.
8
Q-tips on the ground.
On the ground between our cars.
Yeah, it's
got to be one person that just throws their Q-tips out the window when they're done working on using them in their cars.
But 8.
8.
One person?
What? There's more than one person using Q-tips and throwing them outside?
I don't think I use 8 Q-tips in a year.
I think I've never used 8 Q-tips. I don't know. Maybe.
The hell is going on out there?
It's got to be one person, doesn't it?
That would be my best guess, but
and
they
can't
have to.
And they can't just keep them in their car to throw out another way. They just throw them out.
Yeah,
that's what's happened. That's it. What else is
the garbage? And so, I don't know. I've got the garbage.
No way.
I don't.
There's no way Q-tips.
I don't think I want to work in a place where people like roll their windows down if they're using Q-tips for Lord knows what and just throw them on the ground.
Well, you do.
What is it? The 70s?
You do.
What the hell's going on?
Bad news. You do work at such a place.
It's driving on the highway 65 miles an hour. I got a little left in my soda from the fast food drive out the window. That was the 70s. Who gives an F about anything?
Throw a burrito.
It's
out the window.
Nothing matters. 2025, what are you doing? Throwing Q-tips out of your car.
Probably very surreptitiously.
This is
know that people who saw you do that would be like, well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're doing
you call someone. What are you doing?
You're doing it surreptitiously. You're just like sort of slipped out of my hand as I'm walking and no one's around. So Q-tips. 8 of them between my car and yours right now.
Why is someone driving around with Q-tips? It just does not.
That's not the weirdest part. The weirdest part is not that you would want to use a Q-tip in your car. It's that you would dispose of it.
We disagree.
Way.
I think littering is way more commonplace than driving around with Q-tips in your car.
Okay.
I think that's almost in a blowout, the weird part. Like, you don't have time to use Q-tips in your bathroom at home? What are you doing? They're in the compartment of the console of your car. Oh, I need a Q-tip. What? I've never needed a Q-tip so badly that I would need to have them in my car. What are the things you have in your car?
Well,
spare change, the AAA card, tools to change a tire. What? Q-tips? I don't get it.
And maybe, like yourself, I have never thrown anything out the window of my car that would belong in a garbage can. So still, you make a case to me. The fact that someone is just disposing them by dropping them on the ground is, to me, the hard part. Back after the update, we'll look for your calls again, 803-0550. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR.
Call or text
We are just over a week away from the start of the NFL draft, and more pre-draft visits for the Bills continue to come in. The latest name added to that list, Ole Miss cornerback Trey Amos. Howard Simon and Joe Marino have more on Amos up at our website, WGR550.com. And speaking of the draft, do join Schopp and the Bulldog for the annual pre-draft special tomorrow from 4 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. streaming live on YouTube. Get the latest on who is being mocked where, hear from the insiders, and guest appearances from Jeremy White, Joe DiBiase, Nate Geary, and Sal Capaccio. It's presented by Upstate Honda Dealers for great deals on the entire Honda lineup, including the all-new Honda Passport. Visit your Upstate Honda dealer today. 6 games in the NHL tonight, just one with playoff implications. It's Montreal hosting Carolina at 7. The Canadiens can clinch the playoffs with a win or a loss in overtime/shootout. If they don't get that 1 point, though, Columbus can clinch tomorrow with a win in regulation versus the Islanders. Blue Jays took down the Braves tonight, 3-1. Little note on that, the Jays pitching staff set a franchise record 19 strikeouts in a 9-inning game, while the Mets, they fell to the Twins 4-3 in extra innings. And then coming up at 7, the Yankees will host the Royals. And we do have night number 2 of the NBA play-in games, the Heat versus the Bulls at 7:30. Then at 10, the Mavericks take on the Kings. Losers are eliminated, while the winners will play on Friday for a chance to become their conference's 8th seed. That's your Paddock Chevrolet Sports Update. Paddock Chevrolet celebrating 90 years of being your hometown dealership. I'm Zach Jones for WGR Sports Radio 550.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog.
Raisin Bran. You got to put Raisin Bran up there. Everybody knows it.
It's Mike Schopp.
Listen, get your own stupid old dying person team and choose your own cereals.
And the Bulldog.
I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves.
That cereal is soggy. You reach into the fridge for the milk and open the lid on the milk to pour it in there, and that crap is already soggy.
I am untethered and my rage knows no bounds.
That's a problem. That's a problem for a cereal.
Huge
I think.
problem.
It's Mike Schopp and the Bulldog on WGR Sports Radio 550.
Hello again. Q-tip gate raging. Or not. Maybe it's not raging.
I'm raging about it. I'm going to be very curious about what sort of variety of explanations we hear about this over the coming days, weeks, and months.
If there is one.
Yeah, I don't know. One suggestion, ear, nose, throat doctor in the complex. Like, I don't know. I know there's a dentist right down below us. So I don't know.
Are Q-tips dentist adjacent?
I don't feel
There's
like that.
real estate.
I think ear, nose, throat, yes. The dentist, no. I don't know.
I don't even think people park back there unless they work here, mostly. Anyway.
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. There are the dentist's office, I think, has the newly reserved like 6 or 8 parking spots that, generally people that are going there would use those, I think.
Nobody would get directions here to the back. I had to teach my car to come to the back, like to know this is actually, I have arrived. Okay, Veronica, I'm telling you now, that's the name of my car. I have arrived, so you don't have to tell me that by the way, on that, this car has got a mind of its own when it comes to directions, because when I say tonight, put in directions for home, right? It tries to take me all through the complex, not just out. It has me, I don't do it. It has me driving around and through all the buildings and then coming out.
Just for everyone who doesn't know you like I know you, explain to us all again why a place that you drive to every day for the last 25 years, you put directions in.
Because of the potential of an accident, and I have it, so I use it. Like if there's an accident on Maple or on the Grand Island Bridge going home, then I might, if it's bad, I might have to go around. Right. So that's why. Every time.
Can't you just check that before you leave here and then go and not worry about it?
That's not easier.
Okay.
What's easier is to push the button that says home or work.
Right.
And that's all I have to do. That's easier.
See, I'm too prideful. I don't want my car to get, or my phone to give me directions And this got me. I told you this story off the air from Friday. I got out of here on Friday, was going to meet some friends on Main Street in Williamsville at a place that I thought I knew where it was. And so I parked where I thought was close.
Yeah.
Because I thought, it's Friday night in Main Street in Williamsville. I don't know, parking. Here's a spot, and this is only a block or two. I'll just leg it from here. And I missed by half a mile. And so I'm walking, and I'm passing places, and I'm like, oh, it's not where I thought it was at all. Because I wouldn't put it in my phone. Because I just thought, I know where this place is. I'm just going to go. Oh, yeah, it's right up there. I'm going to park. Stupid. So I could have used the technology.
Yeah, it's easy.
It would have saved me.
Click.
Some inconvenience.
CJ is next. Hello.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Good, man.
You guys really got me going back and forth on who I would want the Bills to pick.
Good.
I know earlier you mentioned about the D tackle and pairing somebody to help out Ed Oliver, be a better version of himself. Get some size in there, but I thought about that for the whole offense. For our offense, we don't know what's going on with our running back situation, but let's assume that goes left. Let's assume the worst. We have nobody else that you really need to plan for other than Josh Allen on offense. And I think to help everybody else, speed would be phenomenal there, especially with all the rule changes with special teams and you almost being at, the 35-yard line and almost being at midfield to be that much closer to not only a field goal, but you have an offensive line and a quarterback that buys so much time. A speedster will open it up for a tight end, a screen that you run to secure. It eliminates the Chiefs from blitzing so much and keeping that safety high. And I'll also go back to defense and say D-line would help each other, help the corners. A really fast corner. We don't have speed on this team at all. Right. A really fast corner, a good corner will really help the D-line out. I think it all works together, not just that individual player. And it has me going back and forth what do I think more? And I just think about the rule changes. And I think the rules are a big part of even us grabbing a kick returner. What's the guy that we got from the Jaguars that was drafted?
Laviska Shenault.
Yes, and I think they also look at rule changes. Even Brandon Beane said it. With the rule changes, that was a good guy to pick up. And I think they think about that as well. So now I'm thinking about it speed will really help with all the defensive things that you can do. Whether even with the pass that happened to us with Worthy catching it, and it went to the offense. If defense and offense catch that ball, the ball goes to the offense. Period. Or is defenseless receiver or Josh Allen got hit late. These offensive plays, they want to see plays.
Right. Oh, that's right.
So
yeah.
That's me. I'll let you guys talk.
All right, CJ. Thank you. Yeah, I also. I said it. I think you're calling in after I said I've been kind of all over the place over the course of the last 3 or 4 months. I need this. I need that. Speed all over the field. The Bills are really lacking. I think if you boil it down, corner, receiver, D tackle, D end, safety, what do you really want? What traits are you looking for? Speed would be, I think, at the top of my list. The Bills have been, I've been banging this drum for 5 years. They lost to the Chiefs in 2020. I'm like, I need some speed. On offense is mostly what I was thinking, but fine. I could use it on defense too. The Bills are not a particularly fast team. And I don't know, they've had a ton of success doing it the way they've been doing it. So it's hard to, go too hard at them and poke too many holes, but they could use an infusion of speed. I don't know, maybe they just don't value it as much as some other teams do.
Well, maybe. That might be fair. How did they play last year? It's both how you want to build your team, how you're able to build your team, and then also how you play the game out with the players you have. And they went bigger. They wanted to play power. They brought in a sixth lineman all the time. That was their downfield passing stats were gross. Guy won the MVP anyway. But what was he? 28th in yards per target, depth, all the bigger passing numbers. The Bills ranked, I don't want to say all, but many they ranked really low. It just was not ultimately, I guess, needed, really, but it was just not a well-run part of their offense. Instead, you had Cook's season, what that was, and, of course, Allen running, too. It was more of a power team. Now, do you want to change that? You don't really have to change that by drafting one speedy receiver.
No, you just add a dimension, right? Add an element that you're lacking. I just, a lot as the caller's talking circles me back. Like I agree with the caller's premise, basically. Like Cook, you're concerned about him being here, right? I think when you said if it goes left, like that you got a problem. Like who else are teams fearing? I don't want to be a team that my next most important guy after my MVP quarterback is my running back. Because I feel like a defense is going, okay, fine, you're going to hand it to somebody. You're going to hand it to this guy. Is he more dangerous than the next guy? Okay, maybe, but all things being equal, I think you're doing me a favor, right? Why do teams, including the Bills, allow? And I know this is evolving, and it swung last year. Not just the Bills, a lot of teams in the league. There was more running. At least that's the way the year started. I'm not sure if that's exactly how it ended. But, a lot of this running backs don't matter. Investing in the running game, investing in running backs got turned on its head in the last 16 or 18 months. But I still think I'm better off if I put my team together so you're worried about taking away Josh Allen's best guy down the field somewhere, or just on the field, a passing target, someone that you have to worry about. Because if my next best thing is giving the ball to my running back, man, I feel like I don't want to quite say I'm playing with one arm tied behind my back, but I don't think I'm putting my best foot forward. I think I'm doing you a favor. Because I've got this guy, and I know I need to do both things, and he did win the MVP. I don't know, man. I'm starting to feel like I think you felt last year, which was we're run heavy. What are we doing? I think some speed is called for, and something explosive in this passing game is needed. Despite their success, I just think for sustainability, long-term success, I'm just not buying that it's James Cook.
Bottom line.
I'm really struggling with that. And I do think it's fair to say that on offense, the next guy you get to after Allen he scored 16 touchdowns on the ground last year, 2 more receiving. I get that that's where you would look. And they've been successful doing it. I don't know. I'm a little worried that it's not going to last.
That is how I felt last year, somewhat.
And I felt like I was always kind of trying to talk you out of it. Don't worry about it. They'll find their way. I don't know. They really didn't. Their passing game was not great last year.
No, but they went very far.
Yes, that's right.
So there's only so much you can say. And as we talked about last hour, this year they might even be better set up to win the division again because the competition just looks pretty weak. Last year, as you pointed out, they were like a tri-favorite. The Jets by a little bit over the Bills, by a little bit over the Dolphins going into the season, and ended up they won in a walk. They could do that again. My not worry about last year, but was that it would just be I'd be bored. Like if they're not in a division race, this is our lives now. This is like I guess it could qualify as a complaint in some way. They might win by so much that it's just all about the playoffs, and all that's left for this team to do anyway is win then. So here we go again. And they're minus 145 to win at least 12 games. I mean, here we go again. And last year did not get boring at all in terms of the race because of Kansas City.
They always seem vulnerable. Yeah.
Well, they were always just right out of reach. So all they had to do that whole time was lose one game, and the Bills would have been live for the 1 seed. They never did until it was over. And they went to Denver, and Bo Nix went 30 for 30, and they just laid down. So that it stayed interesting because of that. And Kansas City, like you said, always looked beatable. They just didn't lose. So there it is. If you have last season again, it would be almost miraculous if you didn't get the 1 seed as that team. Like I've said many times, what could the Bills have asked for last year? I mean, they just had an easy ride. They had no competition in the division at all. They lost a freaky game to the Rams late. Otherwise, they would have won from like week 6 on to the end, or to New England anyway, when Allen didn't play. And it still wasn't good enough to get home field for that game. Like, that's almost incredible. It is incredible. And you would just want to test that again if you could. Kansas City going to go win 15 games again like that? Like anything. I mean, that's just not likely, but it does happen. So it won't be boring necessarily. Winning isn't boring per se, but they could kind of run away with it again, and then all we're doing is talking about the playoffs. And this draft pick, you draft a guy obviously for the long term, but I referenced Von Miller earlier and Amari Cooper, like guys you're getting for just like that one moment in the postseason when you really need it, and that could be Luther Burden. You know, what did the Chiefs do with Worthy? It took a while, but he had a monster Super Bowl. They got to a point where he was important, and that's what you'd want. I mean, you'd want the long term also, but you'd want to have that guy be a difference maker for you in the big game.
Yeah, I mean, you can ding him and them for it coming in a blowout, like big deal. You scored late, congratulations. But he had a big game against the Bills too, in the AFC Championship game, and that game was close the whole time. And that, to me, that's even more impressive for like him in that pick, that he performed like that, because garbage time in the Super Bowl. Great, thanks for coming.
Okay,
but still, They got what they got there. They got there with him. They got what they needed when they needed it.
Speaking of the draft, Chris Trapaso joined us today, as he does each Wednesday, to preview it. We'll have that conversation next. Mike Schopp and the Bulldog, WGR